For the most updated version of the Glyphs RPG blueprint, tokens, accessories and resources, please visit www.glyphsrpg.com. Also visit 2ddice.com for our internationally popular D20 RPG coins and our other masterful coin works.
Greetings and welcome to Chapter 13 of the Glyphs RPG Blueprint. Today we're going to be talking about combat. Personally, this is one of my favorite chapters, and the combat system as a whole is one of my proudest achievements in designing the system for a couple reasons. But right now, I want to break this chapter up into a couple different segments to help you absorb it a little bit better. So first, we're going to talk about combat dynamics and the different types and forms of combat. Okay. And afterwards, I'm going to do a little mock combat scenario with miniatures to give you a better visual example of a typical combat encounter. Okay. Now, as you will see when you start playing Glyphs for yourself, you will notice the combat system tends to favor strategy, and the right approach is opposed to simply whittling down some monster or enemy's hit points just like every other game out there, okay? That is done deliberately. So some people think it can be a little unforgiving, okay? I beg to differ. I think, in my opinion, and others' opinion who's actually played it, they find it more rewarding because it's easy to sit there and go, I'm just going to rush into combat with my strongest character and beat this guy's hit points down, right? Everybody does that. I want to do something different. I want people to think about what they're doing, you know, as far as what their character's capabilities are, what equipment they have, and what they're facing. That's a more realistic approach, if you ask me. And I'm trying to mimic that as much as possible in combat. So, I mean, every combat scenario should be a different experience for every player. And you should be able to treat surviving a combat encounter as a big deal, in my opinion. So I look at it as a positive thing. So and basically, even the lowliest skeleton can become a pretty big threat if you're not paying attention, no matter how strong your character is. Okay, so intelligence and strategy is advised when going into combat in the Glyphs system. Okay, so just a preamble to that. So let's get into combat dynamics. So I'm just going to quickly summarize the aspects of combat dynamics here briefly. Now, I do expect you to read through the book for all the specific calculations and the highlights here. But basically, first there's the initiative. Okay. Then there's actions and attacks. There's types of movement and recovery. So initiative is just like every other game. Who gets to go first? Okay, so that's all we're looking to do is decide which opponent is able to unleash the first attack or an action at the beginning of a combat encounter. Okay, so once each adversary has their chance of doing their action, then the cycle simply repeats. Okay, so the way we do that is simply each participant spends their token, okay, and interprets the digits from 1 to 10, just like we've learned about earlier, and then adds in their initiative modifier. So if you look at your character sheet, it'll be on there. Factor that in. Whoever has the highest score wins. It's that simple. Okay. Now, on initiative, the way it's written, you're supposed to do the initiative every loop, but for the sake of time, and I think people will agree with me on this, I recommend just doing the initiative cycle once, especially if you got a group of four players or more. That way that'll keep from slowing things down. So that's up to you how you want to interpret that, but just wanted to point that out real quick. Okay, now we get into actions and attacks. Okay, so in combat, most actions will be attack, but sometimes you may have to retreat, or a character may have to use an item, or drink a potion, or signal for backup. Those are all considered actions. So by default, any action or turn, I guess you could say, in Glyphs consumes 1 instant in time, which is about anything that takes a half to 1.5 seconds. Okay? Example of that. So movement. Okay, let's talk about that real quick. So in a combat encounter, movement by default is defined by how many feet a character or a monster can move in one instant in time. Okay, calculated by multiplying size by speed modifier. Okay, so here are some examples how to do that. Okay, now by default, opponents are considered to be stationary unless they're advancing in any direction, or they're already in the process or in a state of motion. Okay, that's my annoying cell phone ringing. I'm going to ignore it. Okay, let's see. So that's pretty much that. So here's some size factors to consider here. Okay, just take that. Now, let me show you what I mean by movement here. So if a character has a movement rank, a speed rank from 1 to 2, if they're moving, okay, there's no additional token slide to hit that target. Okay, but let's say in this example, this character, this monster, has a movement rank of 11 to 25 speed. So that's pretty quick, okay, base moving speed. So in that case, that's a really quickly moving target. You would need 2 additional token slides to strike that moving target. So that's an example of how movement can factor in to combat, okay, if you're hitting moving targets. Okay, then we get to recovery here. So what is recovery in this instance? Now, that only means the number of consecutive powers, techniques, or counterattacks a player character can execute during combat, okay? And that's defined by the endurance modifier, okay? So once the limit is reached, the character must recover for 1 instant and cannot execute an ability or counterattack until they're recovered. Now, personally, I rarely ever use this one, but that's only there if you want to instill more realism in the combat encounter. I rarely use it myself, but it's there if you choose to go that route, okay? Next, on the combat dynamics here, escape and pursuit. So here's some calculations you can look at to determine if a character succeeds or failing at fleeing an opponent, okay? So when a character attempts to escape from a combat encounter, the escaping character and pursuing opponent's movement ranks, as well as any distance they may have from each other, are factored in. Here's some calculations to look at here. Okay, defenses. Now, in combat, the best defense, in my opinion, is almost better than a strong offense. Okay, so you're going to see as we get into the chapter here that defense plays a big part in combating glyphs, and there's a reason for that. Okay, so a defense attempt by default doesn't consume an additional instant in time because combat is fluid and it's happening simultaneously. So there is none of this 1-2, 1-2, you know, gapped, choppy movement, so to speak, in glyphs. Everything's fluid and then dynamic. So that's what we're trying to replicate here, and that's very evident through the defense opportunities. Okay, then we get into riposting. Okay, let's say you have a player character who holds their sword out, their weapon out in a defensive posture, and is intending on basically counterattacking. They're in the defense and so forth. So that's what we mean here by riposting. So the characters have the option to remain in a defensive position instead of carrying out an action or an attack. Okay, so while doing that, while riposting, okay, when they try to parry or evade an attack, the character who is riposting gains an additional token spin towards their counterattack attempt. So if they're riposting, their counterattack is more likely to succeed. So that's one approach to combat. Okay, you get that one player that has to have 2 weapons simultaneously. The rule's very simple. So each archetype has the designated dual wielding capability. So make sure to check your archetype restrictions if that's what you want to use. Okay. Now, when attacking with 2 weapons simultaneously, it's very simple. The relevant weapon stats are added together to produce a combined figure. So that's the simple approach to dual wielding that we're using here. Try not to complicate things too much. Okay, finally, we get into absorbing and cover. So absorbing is basically, come at me, bro. You got this awesome armored up, you know, character, and he's willing to just take a hit for the team and pulverize the opponent once he absorbs a hit. Okay, so it's basically, come at me, bro. That's essentially what we're trying to say here. So instead of assuming a conventional defensive tactic or riposting, okay, some characters can choose to rely on their armor or a force field to basically absorb incoming damage. So somebody who's really armored up can afford to do this. It's a risky move, but if somebody's got the right armor, then they can definitely pull this off. Okay? So what that does is absorbing negates the need for relying on a successful token spin during a defensive maneuver. And what that allows you to do, it gives you the choice of executing a free-form, focus attack, technique, or power during your counterattack turn. So that's something that can come in handy for somebody who's pretty beefed up here. Cover, real quick, is just what it means. You know, dodging and running for cover behind, you know, a pillar or a tree or a wall from incoming fire or a dragon's breath weapon or so forth. That's essentially what we mean here. Now, you'll see here on page 239, there's different levels of cover that you can hide by. There, you know, they can take different levels of abuse if you want to go that realistic. Now, some architects / game masters may not want to care about that too much as long as it's not overboard, but let's say you do want to consider the level of abuse a cover object can take. So as an example here, and you see a list here of samples here. So let's say a cover object class 2 as an example. So that would be something like a wooden crate or maybe drywall. Okay, it gives you default AHP, default hit points that it can take, and it also tells you that that cover object can only be damaged by middle arms or stronger. Okay, and it gives you numbers here. So if you want to count that in, that's at your leisure to do, but it is there available to you. But that's pretty much all there is to it. Okay. Finally, on page 240, the fourth section of combat dynamics. Let's talk about surprise attacks and stealth attacks. So a surprise attack is simply attacking an opponent when they're not aware you're attacking. So a sniper attack, something of that nature, to where you're simply inflicting damage on an unsuspecting target. Okay. If basically you're hidden, you're invisible, okay, and so forth. So pretty straightforward there. Okay, here's two types of surprise attacks that we look at here. So we look at calculated and blind. So a calculated surprise attack is basically means the attacker is able to freely make one preemptive free form or focus attack while remaining hidden. So your proverbial sniper, your archer character. Okay, provided that there's a clear line of sight to the target. So as long as there's a clear line of sight, the target's not aware of that character, then by all means. Then the other type of surprise attack is called a blind surprise attack. Okay, so the attacker is only able to make a free-form attack, and we'll get into what that means in a minute, based on a strong hunch as to the target's position. Okay, so there's not necessarily a clear line of sight, but they may hear something in their proximity, or they smell a monster coming, or they just have a strong hunch of a monster's approximate position, and they're going to go attack that rather than a clear line of sight. So they're jumping from a corner or from concealment, and they're attacking what they feel is the best position. Okay. Now for that to work, okay, the attacker must make 2 consecutive token slides to the action grid shape for a blind surprise attack to work. Okay. Now stealth attacks, how are they different than surprise attacks? Okay, stealth attacks simply mean your character is trained in stealth, or they're mimicking stealth, and they're deliberately trying to take out a target from close distance using silent maneuvering. Okay, so it's a little bit more advanced. Mostly the rogue type characters are going to be using this, but you're going to have people that try to be sneaky sometimes and try to take out the guy, you know, on the other side of the crate, like they do in the games and stuff. That's fine. Now, what do we mean here mechanically? So stealth attacks, like I said, they share a lot in common with surprise attacks, except there's one major difference, like I said. So they're strictly focused attacks that occur within the M1 to M4 ranges. So in the melee ranges, like I mentioned, and they can only be executed by characters who have training in the stealth walk skill, or who are otherwise, you know, like I said, are able to successfully move silently. That depends on the game master on how they want to do that. But generally, it's somebody trained in stealth. Okay. Now, a stealth attack requires that the attacker to stalk and to deliver a single close range blow to the target while remaining undetected. So, like surprise attacks, stealth attacks can only be used once per combat encounter. Okay, factors that are considered are ambient light and sound conditions. Okay, so those play a heavy impact on stealth attacks. Okay, because they can muffle or foil a stealth attempt. Okay, so very important to consider for you architects out there when you got some guy trying to go solid snake on somebody. Keep that in mind. Okay. Some entities, they are immune to conventional stealth attempts due to enhanced sense of smell or extrasensory perception. So if you got a monster who's got a really strong sense of smell, then chances are they might be immune to stealth. So you got to be really creative when you come about it here. Okay, so there's some examples on how to use stealth here. Now, let's see. Okay, let's go to part 5 on combat dynamics real quick. Okay, let's talk about fumbles. So page 241, which is section 5 of combat dynamics. Fumbles. So if you have a scenario where a token slide lands completely outside of the action grid, so it misses and it's completely out of the grid, or it falls off the board, okay, if you want to go that route. During a focused attack attempt, okay, that can cause accidental injuries. Weapon failures can occur up to 50% of the time, okay, so attackers can be hit, they can hit the wrong target, bows can snap, swords can, land on somebody's foot, guns can jam or misfire. It's up to you, the architect, how you want to interpret it, but those are some examples of a fumbling scenario. Okay, falls and takedowns. Now, a lot of close quarter combat encounters will likely end up on the ground. Okay, ask any martial artist out there, they will tell you that. Okay, so when a character falls or is thrown to the ground, minor or heavy fall damage can occur. There's my annoying cell phone again. Let me turn that off. Okay, so there's some damage scenarios that can cause from falls or takedowns. Okay, now let's get into wrangling. So all wrangling is a grappling or a wrestling type scenario. Okay, it can happen a lot during combat. So when two characters are in a grappling situation, and basically it becomes a battle of force. Okay. So submission holds, wrestling maneuvers, things of that nature, or something similar. All it becomes at that point is an attribute challenge versus strength. So that's all you need to know there. Okay, weapon locks, something very cool that I've examined, which can happen quite a bit during melee weapon combat. So if you got two characters that are going at it, they're in the heat of melee combat, right? Okay. Sometimes they can cross weapons with their opponent. Okay. And that occurs mechanically when both the attacker and the defender score the same number when the defender attempts to block or parry the melee attack. So during that maneuver, both characters score the same number during their defense opportunity. Okay. Now, by default, the character with the higher hit modifier would break the lock and gain the extra opportunity. Okay, that's one way to interpret. Okay, so if the hits ranks are equal, this initiates an attribute challenge versus finesse. Okay, that's the second tiebreaker to this. Okay, so at that point, whoever succeeds gains another attack opportunity. Okay, and repeat that often as necessary. So in the middle of melee combat, that can happen, and it has happened a few times. And that maneuver alone can mean the difference of surviving the encounter. And I've seen some pretty crazy things happen. Just to be aware of that. Okay, nerve firing, something pretty frustrating. It's an easy way to piss people off, but I mean it can happen. So nerve firing. So any character who's wielding an advanced or antique ranged arm, a gun, a crossbow, something like that. Okay, and let's say that character is killed in combat. Okay, they have the opportunity to unleash a final attempt to take out their killer. So the guy's dying, he's about to die, he's falling, and he's got that one split second to shoot the guy that just killed him. Okay, so when that happens, there's a 10% chance per will attribute rank that the dying character will discharge the ranged weapon of the opponent as a free form attack. So character's dying, he got shot or whatever, and he's very strong-willed. He's got a high will score, so factor that in here, and if that succeeds, then that character has the opportunity to unleash a freeform attack with that weapon. Okay, that's what we're trying to say here. Now, finally, let's look at spatter. Okay, blood splatter, basically. So, any attack on a biological subject's vital organs causes blood to splatter, out from the wound. Okay, blood spray generally reaches the attacker and any immediate bystanders present in the blood's path up to a distance of M2, so in the lower melee range. Okay. Something to consider if you're playing a butcher character who needs to absorb blood for ether points and so forth. That's something to consider. Or if you're playing a campaign where it's more mystery driven and killing may be rare and suddenly the blood's all over you or all over the room, then the inspector could use that for clues. I mean, there's a whole number of ways you could factor in spatter, but just to keep aware of that. Okay, finally, I just want to point one thing out real quick on stealth attacks. Now, you do remember me saying that light and ambient sound are factored in to stealth attempts. So I want to show you this chart here that I made to help do some of the math work for you to make it easier to interpret. So stealth attacks involve overcoming sound and lighting conditions of the immediate area while attempting to move in a stealthy, silent manner, right? So generally, like I'm walk skill, or you can use something similar to that. That's entirely up to you, the architect. Okay? Now, the stealth attack chart here you see factors in a combination of ambient light and sound to come up with a modifier score that can either aid or inhibit the stealth attack attempt, such as the level of coverage predicted or provided within the location. So here, just take a look, okay, at your leisure. On the top, we have ambient lighting levels 0 through 3, and ambient sound 0 through 3. Okay, the combination of these two can either aid or hinder your character's attempt. So you may have to have additional token slides or less token slides for your stealth attempt to work. That's what we're trying to say here. So again, take your time and read through the chapter and check out this chart. It's there for your reference. Okay, now let's move on to the next section. Okay, so now let's take a quick look at the different combat forms that are going to be used in the Glyphs RPG blueprint. Okay, first and foremost is melee. Okay, it's probably every RPG system out there has a strong emphasis on melee combat. Glyphs is no exception. Okay, so by definition, melee combat involves the uses of weaponry that generally relies on an attacker's physical skill or prowess. Okay, so swords, knives, staves, whips, spears, things of that nature, okay, that are very skill driven, okay, are going to be used in melee. Now, by default, melee combat unfolds in the M1 to M4 ranges. That's what M stands for, melee. So melee 1 to melee 4. So anywhere between 0 to 9 feet, that is considered a melee combat encounter if two characters are going at it with melee weapons, okay? So that's the conditions for that. So damage is measured in LHP or AHP. So localized hit points would affect the character physically, or AHP would affect the character's armor. Okay. Now, in melee combat, okay, damage is measured, like I said, as I mentioned, LHP or HP, but the impact modifier is added to the total LHP or AHP damage. So keep that in mind. If your character makes a successful hit, make sure to factor in their impact modifier score to the damage. Okay. Then we've got the second most common is ranged and radial. So combat that uses bows, rifles, guns, flamethrowers, and then radial, of course, explosive bombs, aerosols, things of that nature goes to here. Okay, so ranged and radial combat take the place within S1 to S4. So short 1 to short 4, R1 to R4. So range 1 to range 4. So anywhere from 4 to 300 yards. Okay, let's see here. Then D1 to D4 is 5 to 500 yards, and so forth. Okay, and then X1, X4 is 5 to 500 miles. Okay, let's see here. Now, damage, like in combat, in melee combat, it's measured in attacker's impact modifier. Doesn't necessarily contribute to the score because we're talking about the weapon itself is doing damage for its own value, and it's not factoring in the character's target. So that's one of the key differences here. Okay. Now let's see here. Then we get into hand-to-hand combat. Now hand-to-hand is a little bit detailed here, and I'm going to show you why here. So hand-to-hand combat, or H2H, basically means two or more opponents are squaring off and using their own bodies as weapons, okay? So no conventional weaponry here, just man-to-man, basically, okay? So brawling, boxing, martial arts, anything of that nature. Now, H2H fighters should have a strong distribution of techniques, okay? So the fighter archetype is strongly advised for H2H combat to supplement their otherwise raw attributes. Now, one thing to point here. Now, H2H combat also takes place within the M1 and M4 ranges. So it's melee range, okay? Now, so that's 0 to 9 feet. So by default, I want to show different types of hand-to-hand. So grappling, wrestling, things of that nature, choke holds, submission holds, arm bars, joint manipulation, anything like that is limited to the M1 range, okay? Because it's very up close and personal, okay? Punches are limited to the M2 range. Kicks are limited to the M3 range, and leaping or charging moves, so jump kicks, charging, body slams, things of that, are limited to the M4 range. So when you're in the middle of H2H combat, the architect needs to keep that in mind to see if your attack is even in range or not, depending on what you're trying to do. Okay, so default ranges can increase by 1 per size greater than M or medium, but it shouldn't be able to exceed M4. Okay, obviously you can circumvent that architect, but by default that's how it is here. Okay, another thing to note about H2H combat. Damage is measured in MKS, which is marks. Okay, so superficial damage is what we're looking at here. Now, unless a specific technique inflicts LHP damage. So just wanted to point that out. Now, also note that the attacker's impact modifier score is added into the total MKS damage. So let's say the attack lands and you spend your token and the digit lands on 4, right? That's 4 MKS of damage in that case. Well, let's say our character's impact is 3, so 4 plus 3 is 7. So in this case, that's 7 MKS worth of damage. That's what that means. Now, another thing that's very important to note here is this section right here, page 243 on hand-to-hand. Now, is the size differences. So if the attacker is the same size as the defender in this example, so marks damage, MKS, is neither augmented or diminished. So when I hit an MKS of 7, that means 7, okay? Let's say my attacker in this example, in that case, the MKS damage is multiplied by the number of size differences, okay? Okay, because the attacker is bigger than the defender, so he's going to hurt him a lot worse, right? Okay, so let's say I have a medium creature, a medium character attacking a small creature, right? So we're talking about 1 full size difference, okay? Now, that's what we would look at here. So multiply the damage by 1. So in this case, no discernible difference. But let's say he's attacking somebody a lot smaller. Let's say a medium creature is attacking an SS creature, so a lot smaller, right? So the size difference in that example would be 2. So let's say I spend my token and my damage adds up to 5. Well, there's 2 full size differences, so that adds up to suddenly 10. So 10 MKS of damage, so a full hit point of damage. So that guy's going to be in serious pain. Now, let's say the attacker is smaller than the defender. Now, the marks damage in this case is reduced by 1/2. So let's say I've got a small character attacking a medium character, right? MKS damage lands. Struck a bigger character by 1 size, that damage is halved. So 6 suddenly becomes 3 in this example. So just some things to consider with hand-to-hand, because we're talking about very raw, personal attributes that are involved, and size and so forth to consider when using hand-to-hand combat. Okay, so real quick here, we're going to take a glance at targets. Now, this is there for your convenience. And we're going to learn about freeform attacks in a second. All a freeform attack is, I'm going to hit something. I don't care what I hit. I'm going to spin and I'm going to aim for something. Now, I'm going to show you what I mean here. You see on page 244, you have a sample of the action grid. Now, the freeform attack here, all we're doing, and I'll get into more detail on attacks here on the next page, but you're spinning the token in here, and whatever number it lands on in the action grid, that corresponds to a bodily target. Now, you'll see here, I'm using a humanoid template to designate bodily sections, but you can interpret it how you wish depending on your monster, but it's all pretty universal here. So let's see, I spin my token and it lands on 3, right? So here I spin, lands on 3, boom, I just hit this guy in the chest. And you see here, it's a visual representation. Okay, so that's what this means here. Okay, so Glyphs is very visual in nature, and I think it adds a little bit more realism. And like I said, it can make a very big difference in the middle of combat of how quick that encounter ends, depending on how slick you are and what equipment you're using and what equipment the other guy has. Okay, so just take a look at this real quick. That's there for your reference. Okay, so now I want to move on to the next section of the combat chapter, which deals with attacking and defending. So lots of fun stuff there to talk about here. So page 244 again is the freeform attack targets. Save it for your reference. And now let's move on to the next section. So now let's look on page 245. We're still in the combat chapter here. A very important section to go over. We're going to go over the attacker and the defender. So every combat encounter has one, or, has at least one of each of those dynamics involved. Otherwise, it's technically not a combat encounter anymore, right? So let's look at real quick at the attacker. What does being attacker mean in this context, and what can an attacker do? Well, by default, an attacker can do 2 things in combat. Okay, first, and I've already covered this a second ago on the chart, is freeform attack. So all a freeform attack, again, by default is I'm swinging for something. I see the guy's bodily silhouette, his overall figure, and I'm really pissed off, and I'm not focused. I want to clobber and beat the crap out of him. I want to hit something, right? That's what we're trying to reflect in a freeform attack. Now, a freeform attack, because you're swinging at something and you're really engaged in hitting something, you will probably hit something, although it may not be a specific target that you necessarily want to hit. But by default, you're more likely to succeed in using a freeform attack and hitting something. That's why if you look here at the chart and in your action grid, that's why we randomize it, because by randomizing this action here and spinning it and having it land, you're more likely to hit a target than doing a focused attack. So that's why we do that way, just to clear that part up. Now, so freeform attacks, they have no specific target on the body, but you're just, like I said, it's a general strike or shot towards an opponent in an attempt to hit anywhere that they may be. You just want to hit something, right? Okay, so to execute a freeform attack, simply spin your token, okay, from the center of the action grid's circle, so zone 1, so the very dead center of the action grid, or spin it in there from the molecule logo. If you want to toss it, that's fine, but that's how you do it. Now, so again, look at your sights here, very center of the token. Now the numbered zone where the sights land simply designates the target here that it's going to affect, like we talked. So that's all there is to it for a freeform attack, okay? Now, after that, then you simply interpret the element glyphs for damage, and we'll talk about damage here on shortly, and then one of the few chapters coming up. Okay. So that's one way we can approach combat, okay? And for a new person, that may be a better way to go, okay? Now, the second way, and in my opinion, the preferred way to attack an opponent is a focused attack. So that's a very specific called shot to a very specific target on the opponent's body. So a decapitation attack, you want to cleave somebody's arm off, you want to shoot somebody in the eye. Those are very specific targets to do, which requires more skill to do, by the way. So that's why we go about these differently. So instead of randomizing focus attacks, we do focus attacks by sliding the token, okay? So a lot of skill involved there. So those of you practicing right now, make sure to get your token slides down pat, because that can definitely have a huge impact on combat, okay? Because I'm going to be honest with you, most people that I've observed tend to prefer focused attacks because it ends combat quicker and it is a bit more realistic, right? So another thing I want to point out about focus attacks is that because it's very precise, that enables you to find an opponent's weakness and target that weakness. So let's say somebody's got a vulnerable spot in their armor, or a dragon has one loose scale. You want to target that. as an example, or you want to shoot, somebody's weapon out of their hand, right? That is what this enables you to do. So it's very, very nice to be able to do that. And like I said, you're probably going to find that most of your combat experience revolves around focus attacks, so just want to point that out. To do a focus attack, okay, so the attacker focuses an intent on a specific target. They got to be very specific about it. They got to tell the architect of what they're striking and how they're striking it, and mimic it as much as possible, okay? So the attacker focuses their intent on a particular target on the opponent's body. So whether they want to slay it, maim it, manipulate it, that's entirely up to them, but they got to be specific, okay? And the target must be clearly specified by the traveler, the player character, the attacker, okay, before making the slide attempt. So before the slide attempt is made, make sure to be specific to the architect on what you're trying to do, okay? Now, from that point, the token simply slid or tossed, okay? I recommend sliding from the molecule point. Some people, want to toss it. They're more comfortable tossing. That's fine, whatever works for you, okay? For the focus attack to land, the sights must clearly land within the attack's defined concentric shape on the action grid, okay? So should the attack land, then the element glyphs are interpreted for damage, okay, and we'll talk about damage, like I said, a little bit later, that manifests on the localized target. So that's all there is to it, to a focus attack. Now, one thing I want to say here about focus attacks. So, like I mentioned earlier, they are managed through the action grid. Okay, so it's a very real-time approach to targeting an opponent, okay? So that does require some hand-eye coordination and a little bit of practice to use a token while making any attack. So this is great to have on tournaments, by the way, if you're involved in anything like that. Definitely something to keep in mind here. Can give you a nice advantage, okay? So focus attacks, like I mentioned, must originate from the action grid's molecule point, unless the attacker's at a disadvantage, then it would the G location, the G logo. Okay, so because it's a little bit harder to do. But otherwise, by default, focus attacks start from the molecule point. Okay, and by default, okay, the token slide must land in the action grid circle zone 1. So from the molecule to the grid in zone 1, that's most focused attacks are going to land. Okay. Now earlier on, I had mentioned something about moving targets and how they can affect your token slides. So if you have a moving target moving X amount of feet per second, like I mentioned earlier on in the chapter, that can cause you to have additional token slides, okay? I've already covered that. Now, here, I want to point out that an opponent or target size can also affect the number of token slides that are needed to hit it, okay? And again, I don't recommend using this until your player's a little bit more advanced, a little more comfortable, because you don't want to piss off new players when they're just getting used to token slides. But for realism and for the sake of upping the ante a little bit, that is there, and I highly recommend using them, okay? So let's say an example, you got a size medium through a triple L or extremely large target, right? Or something approximately the size of a human torso or larger. So any target of that size. No additional token slides will be necessary in that context. This is assuming that they're stationary, of course, okay? So it's most targets are going to be in that size range anyways on average. But let's say you get something that's in the size range of S to SS, or maybe something the size of a human head or a limb. That's a little bit more granular. So the architect may choose to have the attacker make one successful additional token slide, okay, to that, because it's a little bit harder to hit, right? And same thing here, size is triple S, so the smallest target available in Glyphs, okay, or something approximately the size of an eye or a finger. So very tiny granular target in combat. So in that case, okay, 2 additional token slides might be needed in order to strike that. Now again, this is a little bit more advanced when people are a little more comfortable, efficient with token sliding, but it's definitely there, especially when you got guys getting the hang of things and you don't want to kill your monsters too easily. That's definitely something you need to enforce, okay? So that's it for the attacker, pretty much all there is to that dynamic. Now let's talk about the defender. So, like I mentioned earlier, the best defense in some cases is a lot better than a good offense. That is very true when it comes to Glyphs, okay? Because combat is very calculating, and besides just having the right equipment, and that depends on making a successful defense attempt depends a lot on attributes. So this part we're going to randomize because attacking is more skill driven in Glyphs, and defending is more attribute driven. So how quick does your character react? What equipment is factored in to defense opportunities, okay? So real quick, we have 3 types of defense opportunities in Glyphs combat. We have blocking, parrying, and evading, okay? So blocking simply means just that. You're neutralizing somebody's force with your own weapon. So you're not getting anything out of it except not being clobbered to death. So you're blocking, you're stopping the attack in its tracks. That's all we're doing with blocking, okay? Now blocking, because you're simply neutralizing force, it gives you no counterattack option, okay? So no counterattack, no counter option available because all your energy is used in expending that. So here, make sure, like I said, to read the black lines here. That tells you how to calculate it. So in this example, blocking, you're simply going to spin the token and interpret the digits 0 through 9, which is gives you 1 through 10. Okay, you're going to add in the block modifier plus your weapon or your shield's advantage versus the attacker's randomized 1 through 10 digits plus their impact modifier plus their weapon advantage. Okay, so very important to note here that under the defensive tips, you see the black lines here. Those are the calculations. It shows you how to come up with what I just did. So in this example, let's say I'm blocking, right? The defender wants to block, right? Okay, and we're adding everything together for the defender, comes out to 5 versus the attacker. Their impact modifier and advantage plus randomized comes 4. Okay. The digits comes up to 7 and 6. So we're going to add here all everything together. In this case, the defender, as you'll see here, look at the numbers and the calculations, wins by a difference of 2. So the defender was barely able to block that attack. Okay. Had they gotten less than that, less than the attacker, then they would have been clobbered. That's what that means. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about parrying. So parrying is more like deflecting or slipping through an attack. Okay, so a lot more skill. Something with a rapier or a sword or a geostaff. You're maneuvering and you're deflecting and bypassing. That's essentially what we're doing by parrying. So you're redirecting force. You're not just neutralizing it. Okay, that requires more skill to do. But what that does is that opens up more counterattack options. Okay, so in this case, if you successfully parry an attack, that opens up the ability to freeform attack, with your own counterattack. So very nice to have. Okay, something you see a lot in sword fighting. Okay, and a counter option, you can also dash or escape or use a technique. So parrying is very handy. As you'll see here, it's harder to parry than it is to block, though. Generally, the numbers here for parrying will be lower. So blocking may be easier, may save your life, but it opens up less opportunities. That's why the numbers are the way they are. Okay, so same principle here with parrying. Okay, read the black line. It shows you exactly what numbers to add and calculate together. Whatever the two numbers wins, whoever has the highest number. So in this example here, in this case, the winner, once again, is the defender by a difference of 1. So by 1 number, the defender was the incoming attack. And at that point, they have the option of counterattacking or escaping or using a technique. That's what this means, okay? Finally, we have the riskiest maneuver, okay? Also the most rewarding, but very risky, is evading. Simply means getting the hell out of the way from the incoming attack. So you'll see this in a lot of martial arts, okay? The sidestep maneuver, bobbing and weaving, things of that nature to step out of the way of the attack, okay? Requires a lot of skill and a lot of timing to do properly, but it opens up a lot more counterattack and counteraction options to the defender, okay? So, once again, to evade, you add in your digits here, 1 through 10, depending on how it's randomized, plus the evasion modifier, okay, versus the attacker's digits 1 through 10, depending on how it's randomized, okay, plus the attacker's hit value, plus weapon proficiency. So, you're going to factor in those numbers. And same here, whoever has the highest number wins, okay? So in this case here, the defender wins by a difference of 2. So look at here, all the things that we considered here. I'm just going to skim over it. You can read it for yourself. It's right there. So in this case, the defender wins by a difference of 2, meaning they were able to evade, and because they were able to successfully evade, now they can counterattack, okay, with a free-form attack or focus attack, and they can. A successful evasion opens up the doors to pretty much anything. So very nice, but it's also the riskiest maneuver to do, because if you don't successfully evade, then it's very easy to get skewered pretty bad, okay? So now let's take a look here. I'm not going to go into detail here because of the interest of time, but for those of you who are interested in summing up mass conflicts, let's say you've got an army versus an army, or a platoon versus, you know, a band of, you know, roving bandits or whatever, and you want to just summarize an outcome rather than going into great detail here. Page 247 and page 248 give you very methodical calculations as to determine who's victorious, okay? And real quick, I'm just going to skim over that here. So a lot of things you want to factor in to help determine your outcome, okay? So modifiers, obviously weapons, so what kind of weapons are each faction armed with? What kind of armor do they have? What kind of training do they have? Okay, so what level of proficiency they are with certain weapons, any powers, techniques, vehicles here, what special vehicles give them advantages. Okay, so those are the things that you want to look at here when you're calculating here. This page here, 247, gives you specifically how to do that. Okay, so in this example here, page 248 here, it shows you an example of the calculations, you know, applied. And in this case here, we have two factions going off against each other. And here, just look at the calculations to see how we came up with it. And in this case, faction 2 wins. Okay, you want to look at the numbers here. This is the final number here. The higher number wins. Okay, take your time with this, read through the calculations. Don't rush this, because it's a lot of number crunching. Again, I only recommend doing it if you want to randomize, you know, if you really need to randomize a war or something like that. But it's rare that you'll have to do it, but it is there for you. So in this example, faction 2 is victorious, and specifically better equipment and better training. That's what won this party the battle. Okay, so that pretty much covers it for the combat overview. Now I want to get into an example combat scenario. We're going to use some gaming paper here and a few chits, and we're going to mimic a combat scenario to give you an idea of kind of how to put it together and how it might play out. Okay, so let's go over that now. Let's go ahead and have a little bit of fun, shall we? So in this first clinical tutorial here for combat, we're going to be taking a look at a typical melee combat scenario. So that's the first and arguably the most prevalent form of combat in role-playing. Glyphs is no exception to that. So we're going to take a look at a quick snapshot here. Now obviously this does not account for every scenario or every weapon or possibility out there. That's for you, the architect, and the player to figure out. But this will give you a pretty quick snapshot as to how combat is handled. So in this case we're looking at melee combat. Now here you'll see I have my trusty token. Okay, everybody should have one, at least one. Okay, and here I'm using my my grid board. I'm going to be using that here for my actions. And over here to my right I have some stats handy. Now obviously there's going to be, you know, monster stats or character booklet stats, but in this case I pre-made them strictly for this tutorial. So again, very clinical in nature. And here I am using the popular gaming paper to use my map. Okay, I definitely recommend getting some type of a grid paper to track your battles. Okay, personally I'm very much of a theater of a mind kind of guy, but I have found something like this to be very handy to tracking combat in particular, especially when it comes to movement. Okay, so it's nice to have. Now gaming paper, I mean, I guess I think it's okay. I mean, it's kind of like wrapping paper, very thin, and it's not dry erase. When I run my games, I prefer dry erase. But for now, for this tutorial, this actually works out quite well. It's got a nice color to it, and the grids are very visible, so it's definitely nice to work with. Now, in this example, for melee, we have a warrior, a human warrior, so a knight, if you want, okay, versus a human barbarian, okay, a butcher. So we got the warrior versus the butcher archetype. So interpret it however you wish. Again, very clinical here. And here they've been thrown into a pit to fight against the fight to the death for whatever reason. Okay, this example. So here we have our pit here, and a very small space to fight in. Now the square in this example represents 1 foot. So each square is 1 foot of space apart is what we're looking at here, okay? So first and foremost, as we all know by now, we have to see who gets the initiative, okay? So let's start with the warrior. Let's spin the token. Okay, just a very light spin. The token itself does the work pretty well. Okay, and we're going to read like the most upright or centered number, okay? Or the left if they're pretty level. So in this case, I got a 6. So the warrior gets a 6. Plus, we have to factor in his initiative modifier. That's 5. So we have a total of 11. Okay? Now let's look at the butcher. Let's spin for his initiative. Okay? So here we have 1 plus his modifier for initiative is 4 is 5. So the butcher isn't looking too good right now. They both have their weapons at the ready. Okay, but in this case the initiative goes to the warrior. Now the warrior is armed with a very nice long sword, and the butcher is armed in this example with a very sturdy great mace. Now in this case the long sword has more range. It's a range of M3 per the default content. So M3 means melee 3. So from 4 to 7 feet this weapon can strike. Okay, so let's see. So the distance between the two combatants is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So they're barely 7 feet apart. So what that means is the warrior needs to come a little bit closer to be able to strike his target. Okay, so the advantage in this case, the initiative-wise, goes to the warrior. So he wants to go ahead and make a move towards the butcher. Now, let's take a look at the modifiers once again to see how fast he can move. Now, okay, so we're going to look at his speed, which in this case goes to land. His land moving speed is 5 feet per instant. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to close that gap. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that's the warrior's action. Now the barbarian's turn, the butcher's turn. Okay, the butcher is going to take advantage of the fact that the warrior moved in closer, and he's going to try to attack with his mace. Okay, now the mace, the heavy mace, the great mace that he's going to be using with, can strike in the M2 range. So M2 is melee 2, so 2 to 3 feet. Guess what? There's a space of 2 feet here. He's 3 feet away, so he's barely in striking range from the warrior. So that's what he wants to do here. Now, let me show you something here for a minute. Now, in combat, it's not just the weapon that matters. It's the type of weapon that's used, but also you have to factor in your opponent's armor and any techniques that may abound. So there's a lot to consider when going into combat. So I want to stress again, it can be quick and pretty unforgiving in resolution. I know this explanation can be a little long-winded because there's so many things to cover, but in practice it's actually very quick. So you'll see what I mean. So butcher's turn. Okay, so in his case, he knows the warrior is pretty threatening because the warrior is pretty armored. Okay, in this example, the warrior here is wearing light steel armor on his upper and lower torso, and he's also wearing a light steel helmet. Okay, and he's also got a pretty nice long sword, whereas the butcher only has stone armor on his arms and legs, and otherwise is showing off his, brutish physique, like, typical barbarian type character might, as you can imagine. Okay, so this guy knows that, and he also knows that his mace that he's wielding is designed to So another thing you're going to see in combat isn't just the attacks themselves and the defensive opportunities, but also techniques, as we've already covered. Techniques can be quite a game changer. So in this example here, I do have a technique for each character that they can use. So the butcher wants to go ahead and use his psych technique to give him the most of his opportunity. So to do that, first, as we've talked about with techniques, okay, let me move this over here so you can see a little bit better. First, the technique itself has to work. Okay, so in this case, we're going to go here, and I want to land this token from the G logo into the big circle in order to activate the psych technique. Now, the psych technique basically means the during a defensive opportunity, the character, the attacking character gets 2 separate token spins in order to successfully land the attack, and you'll see what I mean here if it works. So let's say here I'm going for the psych technique. Boom, and see the nice token slide here, nice, and it hits within the circle. So that technique is activated. So basically, the butcher is going to feint or telegraph a false move in order to trick the warrior's defensive. Is essentially what we're reflecting here. So the psych technique is activated, and as he's psyching his opponent, he wants to make a focused attack to the warrior's helmet. Okay, so focused attacks, as we've talked about, okay, start from the molecule logo. Okay, so the butcher wants to go ahead and make a focused attack to the warrior's helmet. Now, let's see here. So we're going to go ahead now. Again, in the book, there are multiple token spins and slides, or token slides to be made depending on the size of target, okay, or target's movement. This is very clinical, so just keep that in mind. So I'm going to just go do one time here to try to hit this guy's head. Now, again, depending on the size of the target, you may need 1 or more slides, but this is very simple here, okay? So, and again, especially for new players, so I'm just going to show you here. So right here, this needs to start from the molecule all the way into the bullseye. So right there. Oh, but guess what? The butcher, in this example, is proficient +2 with his weapon. So that means he gets +2 extra opportunities to make that shot. That's what that means. So I already messed up 1. So I get 2 more shots to hit because I'm better skilled with that weapon. That's what that means. So here. Oops, that's a miss. And boom. Okay, barely a hit. Right on the line there. So because the butcher was more proficient with the mace by +2, he got +2 extra shots. And in this example, he was barely able to make it. Okay? So in this case, he swings his mace towards the side of the warrior's head. Okay? And in this case, it's a hit. Okay? So now the warrior's turn is his defensive opportunity. Now let's talk about that. Defense is very, very important in Glyphs. Okay? Because really, that's because combat is so fluid and so simultaneous. Defense is half or more of combat, if you ask me. So that's what we're going to consider here. So now let's try the defensive opportunity. Okay. So in this case, based on the path of the attack, which is going for the side of his head, which even though it's armored, that's a pretty hefty mace. It could still do some damage to the metal for the steel helmet. So let's see what happens. So to do that, the defender in this case is the warrior, and he is going to try to block the mace's attack, right? That's what we're going for here. So let's see here. Spin here. Okay. Okay, so the most level is 3. So we're going to add 3. Okay, we're randomizing here. And then for a block, let's see here. What do we have to factor in here? Defense opportunity. Let's take a look. Defense opportunity. So blocking is the digits like we just did, plus the defender's block modifier. So in this case, it's 4 for the warrior, plus the warrior's weapons advantage. In this case, the longsword, in my example, has an advantage of 5. So that's a pretty sturdy weapon. So 4 plus 3 is 7. So we have a total of 12. Okay. Now, the butcher's turn. So now we have to factor in the butcher's numbers in this defense opportunity. Okay. So we've randomized, and that is 9. That's pretty awesome. Plus, okay, so we've got the randomized numbers, and then for blocking, okay, we have the impact modifier. So how hard can this guy hit is what that means. So the digits plus the impact modifier for the butcher, which is 4. That's pretty nice. Plus his weapon's advantage, which is 9. So that's a pretty brutally strong weapon. So right off the bat, that's 18 plus 4. 22. So happen. Okay, now had he not scored a high enough number here based on this, because his psych technique worked, he would have an extra opportunity to get an extra set of randomized numbers. So in this case, either way, it worked to the butcher's advantage. So this guy here, the warrior, is about to get clobbered with a mace, okay, on the side of the head. So now let's see what happens when we do. Now, in the structure chapter, we're going to be talking about the damage system in detail. I know we haven't gone over that yet, but very clinically here, let me just show you what it translates to in action, okay? So now that we know we have a hit, the warrior failed to defend against the butcher's attack, we need to determine damage, okay? Lightly spin. And for damage, we look at the element glyphs, okay? Now, if you'll notice, earlier I said the element glyphs have a range from light to strong, so from earth all the way through air is the strongest. Now, on the token, you'll notice that they have dots on them. Those dots are there for a reason, because those are used for numerical calculations, okay? So in this case, just to show you real quick, let's see. So fire has 0, carbon has 0, air has 2, and water has 1 dot. Okay, I just want to show you that real quick. Now the addition from those in a clockwise manner gives you your damage result. Okay, so in this example, it landed here. I have carbon plus air. So 0 dots plus 2 dots is 2, right? So from here to here, we're looking at the 2, starting from the top, the 2 clockwise element glyphs is what we're going to read for damage, always. Okay, so carbon and air, 0 plus 2 is 2. That tells me that's tier 2 damage. That's a pretty nice attack. A tier 3 is a critical hit, the most intense, but tier 2 is still pretty nice. So 2, we're going to take that number and multiply it by the weapon's allocated damage. So 2 times 2 equals 4. That's 4 base damage, right? Now we have to consider the type of damage that the weapon does. Now in this case, the great mace is a striking weapon, okay? So it's not designed to tear through flesh. It's designed to just pulverize, bone and internal organs. No matter what armor you're wearing, is what it's designed to do, okay? So let's see here. Let's take in damage. So I got a 4 damage total. We have to factor in the warrior's helmet. Okay. Now let's take a look at his armor stats real quick. The warrior, is light steel. So what that means? Light armor has an SV or shock value of 0. Okay. So he gets no protection whatsoever against. Okay, it's a very thin layer of steel. Is what it means. Okay. The AHP for the warrior's armor is 76, so that's a lot of HP, okay? So steel's got a lot of hit points, okay? But that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to protect you from shock value, depending how thin it is. In this case, it's very thin. Now, the warrior's resilience value for his armor, the R value is GT2, which is great 2, so a great weapon of intensity 2 can damage the armor itself. So if that were to happen, which it did, then we would simply subtract 4 hit points. Let's see here. Let me see. Let me look at the mace's damage here. Hold on. Let me see something. Getting ahead of myself here. Okay. T4. I'm sorry. T4 damage. So 2 here times 4 is 8 damage. There we go. I'm getting ahead of myself here. So 2 here, and the weapon's damage here, the mace, is T4, so 2 times 4 is 8. So it's 8 base damage that I'm looking at. Now, striking damage is muffled through each body layer, right? Bodily layer. So in this case, an SV of 0 makes the armor null and void based on this striking weapon. So the warrior's head is going to take the full impact of the blow, is what that translates to. Okay? So that's 8 hit points of damage that are going to go to tissue. So full 8 to the tissue, okay, then it's going to be halved, again, okay, to skeleton, which is 4, and halved again to the brain, in this case, which is 2. So that's a devastating hit. So here you'll see, okay, if you can see that here, I have, these are my own designs here, but you're going to be using your own character sheets on page 2 to reflect damage. So here's what just happened. So here shock value based on the Butcher's striking weapon. Okay, so you'll notice here we have sections here. These mean hit points. Okay, so everything here in Glyphs is visual as much as possible. So T means tissue, S means skeleton, and V means vital. So tissue is 2 hit points. Okay, skeleton is 4, and vitals is 1. So most humanoid characters, and by default all of them in this system, if you're a player character, have 2 hit points for tissue, 4 for skeleton, and 1 for vitals. Okay, so that's how they're layered upon each other. So in this case, this warrior here took 8 points of damage to flesh on its head. So that's completely pulverized. Okay, regardless of the helmet. Okay, that damage, 8 divided by 2 is 4. Guess what? Completely pulverizes the skull, because that's 4 hit points. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So that completely pulverized the brain, which has 1 hit point. So in this case here, the warrior completely just got pulverized, and he's completely dead. Okay, that's pretty much a straightforward combat example. I know it sounds long-winded because of my explanations here, but this is just to give you a clinical idea what I'm talking about. Now, let's rewind for a second. Okay, let's go back in time for just 1 second. Let me show you what else could happen. Now, what I just showed you is a typical combat example. Now, because this is a game, and because I have people saying that, combat can be unforgiving, it's too realistic, and it is. And anybody who's had any kind of real combat training knows that any encounter, is generally over in 1 or 2 hits, right? Unless you're sparring or you're in the ring or whatever. Any real life and death combat threat generally ends in a couple hits, right? Everybody knows that who's trained. So, because this is a game, you want to give players more opportunity to live, okay? So first you have the right weapons and gear and the right strategy and all that. Then you have defense opportunities, right? In this case, none of that worked for the warrior. So we have 2 more things that they can use because this is a game, okay? Number 1 is karma points. If this guy here, if the player character had a karma point, right, and he was about to totally die, which just happened, then the player could bargain with the architect to spend that karma point to save his life, okay? And that can be interpreted in a number of ways. So that's one example that could have spared this character, okay? The other example is to use the fate modifier, which I recommend using over a karma point, unless they can burn their karma points, okay? So to do that, this guy, let's say he wants to use his fate modifier to survive an otherwise fatal attack 1 time, okay? So the warrior's fate modifier is 6, so we have to add that in. First we have to randomize, and then add the digit score to his modifier, okay? So this guy's not looking too good. So here, the most upright that I can see here is 1 plus 6 is 7. Let's see, let me write that down here. 7. Now, that's his choice. Now, the architect is going to be the one going to be determining the difference. So the architect would then spin and see how that goes. Okay, so this case, ooh. So they're nice and even. 1 and 2 are nice and even. I'm going to go with 1. So in this case, you could say, if this character used the fate modifier, 7 is far greater than 1. So he was able to survive that encounter by luck. Okay, that's one way. That's another way you could survive an otherwise fatal encounter. Now, when it comes to fate modifiers and the karma points, I don't recommend using them in every single encounter. Okay, so the architect has the best discretion as to when a player character can use them. Generally, I wouldn't use them more than 1 encounter because it becomes too much of a crutch at that point. Okay, so make them work for it. Okay, so that's pretty much it for of combat. Now let's move on to the ranged tutorial. And now we're going to be talking about the second form of combat that you're going to see a lot, which is ranged combat and also radial. So range, so anything with a bow and arrow, a gun, any kind of weapon that's concerned with linear distance, and also radial, which is any weapon that deals a blast radius, so a grenade, a firebomb, an aerosol, things like that that are concerned with clearing a vast amount of space. So let's take a look at here in our second example. Here we have an elven outlander, okay, so your proverbial elven ranger type character, versus a dwarven warrior. Okay, in this case, the dwarf is more of a hunter type of a character, so he's armed with two arquebus antique rifles. Okay, one he's already carrying at the ready, okay, or about to be used, shall I say, and the other one is at his back. And the elf is armed with a very overpowered bow and arrow, okay, which can cover great distances. So let's take a look here. Let's say in this example our two foes are squaring off, and here we have a river running through the middle of the scene, okay, and it's separating the two. Over here on the left, the elf is in the middle of his village, okay, we got a couple buildings here. On the right, the dwarf, he's trekked down from the mountains. He saw the elf over here and wants to pick a fight, okay? And here he has some coverage with giant rocks or maybe tree stumps here that can provide enough cover from the elf's bow. So let's take a look here at how the scenario might unfold, okay? So as you know by now, let's start with initiative, okay? So the elven outlander, we're going to spin. And he spun a 1, okay, plus his initiative modifier. Let's see here is initiative modifier is 5, so 6. So total of 6. And for the dwarven warrior, okay, lightly spin. Okay, he scored a 3. Plus his initiative modifier is 4. So he scored a 7. So as you can see here, by one number the initiative goes to the dwarf, okay? And he's got his rifle kind of in a sort of ready position, but he's not really focused on aiming yet. He just spotted the elf, okay? So let's say in this example he doesn't feel comfortable making a focused attack. He wants to make a free-form attack and hit the elf somewhere, anywhere he can. So here we're going to lightly go from the action grid here. So let me move this up a little bit so you can see here. So action grid here, okay, and just take the token, spin it in, and let's see where it lands. Okay, we're going to go right here on this outer ring here. It fell right in that white spot. So in this circle here, so let's give it 15. Okay, let's say it landed in number 15. Now 15 is the lower right arm. So the lower right arm, okay, is what the dwarf hit with his arquebus. So he fired a shot with his arquebus, which only has one shot capability, and he hit the elf in the lower right arm. Okay, so let's take a look here what just happened. Now because the projectile was a bullet or even an arrow in an example, anything that travels that fast you're not going to be able to dodge under normal circumstances. So unless a character has a specific power or a technique or an ability to dodge something that fast, then by default in Glyphs combat you don't dodge bullets or arrows, okay? Let me just say that. So that takes out the defense component a lot in a ranged combat scenario, okay? So he just got shot in the lower right arm, and let's take a look here at our chart. So this is, in this example, we have the Outlander elf. So the arm here, okay, this is his right arm, and he gets shot in the lower right arm. So let's say, here's his hand, okay? So let's say he gets shot right about here, okay, in the forearm, lower right forearm, let's just say, okay? So that's the target that's going to be hit. Now let's see what kind of damage that the dwarf inflicted with his rifle, with his arquebus. Okay. So once again, like we saw in the melee tutorial, we start from the most upright or centered element glyphs, and we go clockwise to the next one and add the two together with the dots. So in this case, we got carbon and air. So 0 plus 2 dots is 2 dots. So that's a tier 2 attack, so not bad. And times the dwarf's arquebus damage. Now the dwarf's arquebus inflicts tier 3 damage, so 2 times 3 equals 6 damage to the elf's right forearm. Okay? So let's see here. So let's take a look. Now, when you have a weapon that inflicts more than one kind of damage, now, in the last example, the Butcher's Mace inflicted striking damage, and it did very well. But some weapons have the ability to inflict more than one type of damage, depending on how they're being used or what they're striking. So in this case, the Dwarf's Arquebus has piercing and striking potential, just like bullets generally do. Now, because, let me take a look here, the elf, let's see, his armor, upper torso. Oh, guess what? He's wearing arm guards. So the elf, specifically, he's got upper torso, lower torso, and arm guard armor on. It's made of light wood, so not very strong, but it does give him a little protection. So he just got shot in his right forearm, that's protected by a little bit of a wooden bracer, okay, which has 11 hit points here. Now, let's take a look here. SV is 0, and R, the resilience, is SM1. So resilience, even a small weapon, okay, with an intensity 1 can damage it. So again, pretty weak armor. The shock value is 0, so in this case, it was a striking force that hit the forearm. So we're going to go ahead and use striking powers with that, okay, the striking property. And then AHP, the armor hit points, is going to be depleted based on the weapon damage. So just to show you that here. So we have here 2 times the weapon's value here, so it's 3, so it's 6 damage. We've already agreed on that. So 6, and then we're going to subtract that on number 1 from the armor's hit points. So the arm guards, so 11 minus 6 is 5. Okay, so the armor itself got hit pretty bad, but also, because there's no shock value, the elf's right forearm got damaged pretty bad too, okay, with striking properties. So as we saw in the last chapter, striking is muffled through each layer. So in this case, 5 is deducted from tissue. It's only 2 hit points, so it completely breaks through the tissue here. Okay, 5 divided by 2 and rounded up becomes 2.5, which is 3. Okay, we always round things up here to simplify things. So 2.5 rounded up is 3. So, oh, guess what? This is another scenario here. So this elf took 3 hit points of damage to his forearm, but it wasn't completely enough to destroy the skeletal structure in his forearm. So his forearm, is still pretty intact. He's bruised really bad, okay, very severely bruised. He took very heavy damage to his forearm, but it didn't completely break. And finally, 1 hit point to the vitals underlying, if there are any. Okay, so any major veins or arteries or whatever. So 1. So 6 hit points of damage. Okay. Divided by, oh wait, that's 6 hit points, not 5. Duh. Okay, so 6 hit points of damage. Okay, so 6 here completely breaks it. Divided by 3 is 3. And then 3 divided by 2 again is 1.5. We round that to 2. Okay, we round up. So in this case, his vitals got damaged pretty bad in his arm, so he's hurting really bad. So basically, for this purpose, because that target basically got destroyed through striking properties, you could say his arm is very broken and incapacitated. Okay, so he's very much alive, but his right arm is incapacitated in this example. So just scratch that out here. The GM would make a note of what happened, okay? So that's what happened here, okay? The elf is in pain here. Now, let's see here. Let's see how much pain he's in. Pain levels. So he is in severe. He's incapacitated, and he's in pain for, let's see how long he's in pain, okay? For how many instants, okay? So spin to see how long. So 7 instants. Okay, he's going to be, nursing his wound, I guess you could say. So 7 instants is right here. So for 7 seconds, roughly 7 instants in time, he's going to be nursing his wound right where he just got shot. Okay, the dwarf is going to take the opportunity to reload his arquebus and also to move while this guy's nursing his wound. He doesn't want to take another chance. Okay. He doesn't want to use a spare one that he's got on his back and miss. So he would rather play it carefully now that he knows he's got a wounded target. Okay? So the dwarf, in his turn, is going to take some cover and reload. Okay? So he's going to move. Let's see. What is his moving speed? Okay. So the dwarf he moves, in this example, land 5 feet per instant. Now in this example, each hexagon is worth 3 feet or about a yard apiece, okay? And he wants to move behind some cover. Okay, so 1 instant here, 1 instant here. He can move because this guy's still nursing his wound for 5 more instants after this. So 5 more seconds, this guy's gonna be reloading. So basically 5 more seconds or so, okay? No, actually wait. So the reload here, let's take a look at his load time. He's got 13 seconds to load, okay? He just moved 2 seconds, and he moved 10 feet in 2 seconds is what this happened. So now he's got to spend the rest of his time reloading, okay? So 11 more seconds. This guy's about done nursing his wounds, okay? Now, by the time this guy is done nursing his wound, just from recovering from the pain, this guy here is still reloading, okay, is what it amounts to. Let's just simplify things, okay? So now, the elf is going to, let's see, what powers does he have? Oh, he doesn't have any powers. He has a technique, though, okay? Now, because his right arm is incapacitated, it's going to be really hard for him to fire his bow, if not impossible. So he's going to have to use his left arm to be able to attack the dwarf while he's still reloading. Okay, that's what it comes out to. So in this instant, the dwarf is still reloading. Okay, so let's see here. So the only choice that he has is to use, the elf has, is to use his firebomb, okay, grenade weapon that he has, okay, to try to flush this guy out or kill him before he gets killed. So that's because he can't fire his bow, right? So let's see how much space is covering the 2 characters. And he knows, he saw him here move behind some cover here. So we want to move around a little bit. He knows he's still reloading for a few more seconds, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So about 8, so roughly 24 feet or so between the 2 characters is what it comes down to. So the elf has, in this example, let's say he has a 3 strength. So 3 is pretty fit on the scale. So 3 out of 4 is considered pretty strong. Okay, not the strongest, but definitely fit enough to throw a weapon, 24 to 30 feet, or maybe a little bit more. So in this case, he doesn't have to advance, right, to throw his weapon. The elf back with his firebomb here, okay, to try to flush this guy out behind his cover while he's reloading is what's going to happen. So the elf is going to take his firebomb and in the same motion unsheath it from his belt and just lug it. He's very desperate. So let's say that he's able to pull that off in 1 instant in time because he's desperate, he's panicking. We could allow that to happen in this case, okay? So he's just going to shoot from the hip, basically. Just take the grenade, the fire grenade from his hip as quick as possible and just lug it over there in the proximity of the dwarf, okay, to try to flush him out. So in this case, just, let's see here, radio weapon. Now with radio weapons, again, we've talked about they're not so much dealing linear damage, but they, in a blast radius, they affect a blast radius. So all he has to do is hit the general vicinity here, and he's going to hit the dwarf with a fire grenade, okay? So let's see here, we're going to go here. And the dwarf, or the elf, happens to be +3 proficient in his weapon, okay? So let's see here. So firebomb +3 proficient. So if you're proficient +3, that means you get 3 additional attempts. If here, let's see. We're gonna do proficiency. Doesn't really matter in this case because I don't want to do a focus attack. He's in pain. He's doesn't feel like focusing too much on target. He just wants to hit something. So in this example, we're not going to worry about proficiencies because it's not focused. We want to hit something. We just want to hit this guy out. So we're going to go with a freeform attack. So again, just lightly spin. And 17. Okay, so 17. That is, let's see, 17. Let's take a look. Shoulder. Oh, guess what? So he lunges his fire grenade out and towards the dwarf's vicinity, okay, and let's see, the grenade explodes in the ground nearby, which affects a D3 radius. So that's pretty powerful, by the way. D3 is up to 50 feet radius. So anywhere between here is going to be pretty affected all the way through here, and even over where the elf is, actually. So he needs to take cover 2 from his own weapon, is what it amounts to. So he's going to throw it way past here to make sure he doesn't get hit by his own weapon, to make sure this guy here within 50 feet radius is completely engulfed. So that's what's going to happen. And in this example, the dwarf gets pretty much engulfed in flames, starting with his right shoulder. So he's facing here, and as you can see, the vision cone is facing here, so his right would be here. So in this example, that makes pretty logical sense of what happened. So anything here within a 50-foot radius of where he threw the firebomb is pretty much flushed out with fire at this point, while this guy's still reloading his arquebus, and he's going to take fire damage, okay, to his right shoulder, and it's going to spread until he's engulfed, is basically what it means, or he can extinguish it. So let's see, let's take a look at the firebomb. So the firebomb does tier 3 damage. Okay, and let's see here. So damage is tier 3, so just lightly spin. And what do we have here? Oh, okay. So here we have something called superficial damage. So basically, not enough to really hurt the dwarf yet. So basically, we're at fire and carbon. So 0 plus 0 is 0. So that translates to superficial damage. So when we have an example like this, if it's 0, you lightly spin again, and we interpret the digits for marks, which are superficial or light damage. Okay? So in this case, I spun a 3. So 3 marks just affected this guy's shoulder. So here we have a section for marks. 1, 2, 3. Okay? And it's going to affect in here. So in reality, it wasn't enough to really hurt the dwarf yet, because you got to figure 10 marks, as you're going to see in the structure chapter, is 1 hit point. So basically, it equates to not even a half a hit point of damage here per instant. So let's take a look here. Duration here. Let's take a look at duration here for weapon metrics. So duration 3. Okay, so the firebomb has duration 3. So DUR 3 is the duration. So lasts for X count. So it lasts for an X amount of minutes. So let's say in this example, if it lasts X, you have to randomize the numbers to see how long it lasts. So the fire is going to last for, in this case, about 5 minutes until it's extinguished. Okay, on the character, the rest of the surroundings can still be burning, but on this particular character, let's say it's about 5 minutes. Okay, so let's see. Right now, in this example, because it's superficial, the dwarf is worried about extinguishing his burning. Okay, so it's still burning over his clothes, but it hasn't really affected him much yet, is what this means. So he's extinguishing it. That's what he's worried about now. Meanwhile, this guy is focused on getting out because he knows he's wounded. He needs to get back into his village. This guy is worrying about being burned alive. So in this example, believe it or not, there are no casualties as the way it turned out. So this guy here sees him burning, and he may assume that he's burned or maybe wants to run off. This guy here drops his weapon. He doesn't want to fight anymore because he doesn't want to burn alive, okay, in this example, and he's going to get out of town. This guy here is wounded. He knows he doesn't have any more fire bombs. He knows he can't shoot. So in this case, he's also going to retreat. Okay, so that gives you kind of an example of how ranged combat might play out. Okay, so now stay tuned for the next tutorial that's going to show you a quick illustration of hand-to-hand combat. Let's talk about hand-to-hand or H2H combat. So in this example, we're going to square 2 very capable martial artists off against each other, and they've been thrown in the octagon, okay, for all intents and purposes. So roughly 12 by 12 feet worth of space here. Each square is going to be worth 1 foot of movement, and generally, by default, H2H or hand-to-hand combat is concerned with non or less lethal damage. So that mechanic allows you to trade blows more often without killing each other in one hit, unless you use techniques that are designed for killing. Okay, so in this example, we're going to square off, like I said, 2. Both of these are orange. We're going to go with fighter archetypes for each. One here on the left is a human fighter, so a monk, okay, if you want. And over here is a feral, okay, so a feral fighter, so maybe a character who's half tiger, if you will, okay. So a little bit more strength here involved because it's half animal. Okay, so otherwise they're both martial artists in this example. So here, okay, like we always do in combat, we want to figure out who has initiative. So I'm spinning for both since I'm only one guy here. So let's go with fighter number 1 here on the left, the human, and spin and see what he scores. Okay, so 5, okay, plus initiative is 6, so 11 initiative. And to the right here, the feral fighter, we're gonna spin the digits here. Okay, 4 and 9 are level, so we're gonna go with left because that's how we read, most of us do. So 4 plus initiative modifier is 5, so 9. So we have a 9 initiative. So in this case, the human has the initiative over the feral martial artist. So this case here, between the two, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 squares of space. So each square is 1 foot. So we have 4 feet of space here that we can attack with. So anywhere from 4 to 7 feet is M3. Okay, so that's the range that we're talking about here as they square off against each other in this example. Okay, so let's see. Now, fighter number 1 here, the human, he's got the initiative. So 4 to 7 feet. So the only action he can do in this case is kick. So let's take a look at his techniques real quick. This particular fighter here, his techniques. Now techniques are very, very important for fighter characters in particular because they're even though they can use some weapons, their strength is their bodies. So techniques are very important to load up on when you're playing a fighter character. So in this example, each fighter has 3 techniques that they're proficient in. Kind of helps designate their fighting style. Okay, so this guy here is a puncher. He punches, he throws, and he's very good at weaving and dodging. So that's this type of a fighter. Okay, the fighter on the right, the feral, he specializes in kicking and in escaping throws and tumbling. So a little bit more of an agile fighter. Okay, this guy here knows he's not trained to kick very well compared to this guy is. So he has the initiative though, so he wants to take the first shot. Okay, so he's got to get in a little bit closer to the feral is what it essentially means in this context. So to do that, he has to move in. So his moving speed is 6, so he can move 6 feet in 1 instant. Okay, so it puts him right up close where he wants to be. So that's his instant in time. You know what? Let's not do that. Let's go. He doesn't want to throw him. He doesn't want to get an M1. He wants to get a little bit farther. He wants to get right in punching distance. So a punch, if you'll look at the combat rules on page 243, got to remember M1 to M4. Okay, that's melee. Okay, so by default, like we mentioned, grappling, so throwing, anything like that is limited to M1. So he would have to be right in here. He doesn't want to throw him. Okay, so punches are limited to M2. So M2 is 2 to 3 feet. So, I mean, even he could have moved here, okay, in this example. So this 2 to 3 feet here puts him right in range, okay? This guy wants to punch. He doesn't really want to throw him just yet, okay? He wants to take a first shot first. In this example, again, he could have thrown him. It doesn't really matter how, but in this example, he's going to go for the punch. So he's moved in just within striking range, okay? So that was his action. And now the feral's turn. Okay, so the feral sees him moving in. Okay, this guy here on the left is bowed up, ready to throw some kind of a punch, is what this guy can perceive. So this guy on the right, the feral, he doesn't want him to get close. Okay, this guy, like I said, this fighting style is different. He's a little more agile, and he's more of a defensive fighter. He wants to kick and keep things away. So this guy wants to kick this guy. Okay, so in this example, I'm not going to use a kicking. It's designed to inflict serious damage, possibly fatal damage. I don't want to end it that quick. So let's just say he's just going to do a regular side kick at the fighter, this guy, the human's chest, without inflicting fatal damage. So I won't be using the kicking technique. I'll just be treating it as a regular unarmed H2H attack. So important note to say there. So feral is going to start in the molecule, just like we all do here. Let me start here. And it's going to attempt a focused attack with a sidekick to this guy's chest. Again, non-lethal in this case, not yet. So that's how we're approaching it for the tutorial. So here, okay, and he's proficient. 2, his proficiency. Okay, the human is proficient +3 fighter, so he's better with his fists. The feral is proficient +2 in H2H and hand-to-hand. So he gets, in this example, +2 proficiency hand-to-hand, so he gets 2 extra attempts if he fails, is what this means. So we're going to try a sidekick to the chest. So, okay, oh, nice hit. Right there, if you can see, is right on the edge here. So generally you would accept that in most cases. So this is a nice hit to the chest. So sidekick to the chest. Now because it's superficial damage, again, we're not dealing in tiered damage. Okay, tiered damage, destroy armor, destroy things. Marked damage, or MKS, is superficial, was designed to bruise, to hurt, but not necessarily to kill unless you do it enough times. So just want to distinguish here, and then again, you're going to see that in the structure chapter. So superficial damage, which is treated in marks or MKS, we use the numbers, we don't use the element glyphs. So in this case here, spin and interpret the digits. Okay, the most upright here is 6, so we're going to do 6, and then we're going to add the hit damage here, this guy's impact modifier. Okay, so impact modifier for the feral, pretty strong guy by the way. Impact here is 5, so 6 + 5 is 11. So that's a pretty nasty hit either way. He's not trying to kill him, but this guy is pretty big, he's pretty strong, he's half animal, so the logic is he's going to inflict a little bit more damage to the fighter. So his sidekick literally does 11 marks with the damage. Now, in the structure chapter, you're going to see that 10 marks equals 1 hit points of damage. So in this case, this guy here did a little bit more than a hit point of damage to the fighter's chest, is what it comes down to. So let's take a look at that here as to what just happened. Okay, but first, before that damage can land, the human fighter has an attempt to dodge or evade that. Okay, otherwise, what we're looking at here. So before that actually inflicts damage, we need to see if this guy can evade. Okay, now the human knows he's a little bit weaker than the feral, so he does not want to get hit at any costs. Okay, so we're going to do an evasion attempt. We're not blocking, we're not parrying, we're going to try to evade this. So let's look at evasion. So spin the digits, okay, to randomize. First you get your number, in this case it's 2, and then let's see, for evade we got to add in the defender's digits, which I just did, plus the evade modifier, which is 3, is 5, and then the attacker's digits. So let's see, the attacker, we're going to spin for the feral. Oh, that's pretty nasty. That's 8 plus, and then let's see, 8 plus, let's see, what am I looking at here, evade, okay, plus the attacker's hit modifier, and the hit modifier in this case for the fighter number 2, the feral, is 3 plus proficiency. Now in this case we don't have a weapon proficiency rating, we're writing H2H or hand-to-hand proficiency. He's +2 proficient, so he's really good hand-to-hand. So we're going to factor that in. So 8 plus 3 plus 2. Okay, it's 11, 12, 13. So 13 here. So the human fighter only got 5 in his defense attempt. So yeah, clearly in this example, the evasion attempt did not work. So the human tries to sidestep the kick, tries to get out of the way, but he just wasn't fast enough in this example. So the feral's sidekick lands right into his chest, let's say. Okay, he wasn't quick enough to get out of the way, and in this case he takes 11 marks, or 1 hit point plus 1 mark of damage. So what does that look like here? Now here, like we saw in the elf example, the human fighter here marks, those are just there to track, 1, 2, 3, so there's 10 here. So 10 plus 1, so you may have run out of space here, that's fine. Okay, so 11, and let's say he went for the upper chest here. So 1 hit point here. Now the sidekick and H8 by default is striking damage. Okay, so there's no other way to put it in this case. So striking damage. So striking damage, he does one. Say you can round it down to 1 hit point. Okay, there's no sense in crunching all the math. So really, he does 1 hit point of damage to. We got layers here: tissue, skeleton, vital. So tissue takes 1 hit point of damage. Okay, to the upper chest. So circle that out here. Okay, if you can see here, so circle half of it out. Okay, now because of striking damage, remember each layer is halved, it's amplified, it's minimized by half. So in this case, 1 divided by 2 is 0.5. We round up to 1. Okay, so 1 hit point here to the skeleton. Okay, it's kind of messy here. So 1, okay, and then half divided by 2 is a quarter. We round it up to half. So what that means is the vital here, the heart, or the organs here were not affected by the strike. Pretty nice sidekick to the chest, but he got maybe a nice little mark on his chest bones, but that's about it. He's not injured, otherwise he can still probably keep going. Okay? Now, you can add the pain mechanic in to make it more realistic if you want to, but for the sake of the tutorial, I want to move things on a little bit. Okay? So this guy is still, even though he took a nasty hit to the chest, he's still doing okay to fight. Okay? So now, one of two things could happen. We could respin initiative, again, like the book says, to go back and forth, but in this case, I want to save time, I want to keep the cycle going. Okay? So now it's the human's turn. Okay? So he's in range here, this guy was in range to attack, they're still right about the same distance from each other. Okay, so what techniques does this guy have? This guy knows that if he keeps going to toe with the feral, he's probably going to clobber pretty bad, as just happened here. So this guy wants to try to throw him. Okay? So let's see here. Now, let's see. Let's take a look at what options are available for the human fighter. So throwing, punching, and weaving. So to throw, he has to be within the M1 range. Okay, so a little bit closer for his throw to move. Okay, so he's going to use his opportunity to move in. That's his action. He can move 6 feet in the instant. We're just going to get close enough to get this guy. So that's his action. Now it's the feral's turn again. Okay, so the feral sees him moving in. He knows he's not looking to try to punch anymore. He's switching up his stance a little bit. He knows he's going to try some kind of fun, fancy technique. Okay, so the feral is the opponent's a little too close to kick at least for his style, so maybe he's going to try something else. So the feral is let's see, he's just going to throw a freeform punch at him, okay, in this example. So he's just going to throw a punch just to hit something, you know, and try to maybe back off a little bit. Okay, now obviously there's a number of ways this could go about, but for this example we're going to do that. So feral just wants to punch and hit something, and then maybe stun the guy a little bit. So here, okay, and that lands right here. So 5, let's say 5, target for 5 is lower abdomen. So he's going to try to punch him in the lower abdomen, okay? So the human is going to try to defend that, and in this case, the human is going to try to parry that attack. That, in his mind, that's the most logical thing to do. Again, every player might have a different approach, but in this example, the human is going to try to parry the feral's punch attack. So, okay, what do? We're going to randomize like we always do first. Okay, in this case, 7 is what I came up with. And to parry, we're going to factor in the defender's digits like we just did, plus the parry modifier, plus weapon, plus advantage. In this case, there is no advantage. So 7 and the parry modifier is what we're going to look at because we're unarmed. So parry, 6, so 13 is what we came up with. So total with his modifier, he ended up with a 13. Let's see what the feral scores. Let me shake this up a little bit and then spin it. Okay, the feral... Oh, this feral is pretty brutal today. So 5 and 0. Okay, so this one's a little bit more upright. So we're going to go with 0, which is 10. And this feral is pretty brutal. 10 plus Okay, we're going to try to parry that. So we're going to do digits plus hit. So 10 plus his hit modifier. Oh, it's 3. So guess what? It also puts him at 13. Now, what do we say back in the earlier on when we have two numbers that are identical? Okay, that's a weapon lock scenario. In this case, they are unarmed. So this would be a situation where the human fighter tried to parry and it turned into more of a grappling scenario, is what you could interpret it that here, because there's no weapon lock. Okay, so you could do that approach, or let's see here, or we could do the weapon lock approach. Okay, so that is the GM's discretion how they want to approach it, as a weapon lock or a grappling scenario. In this case, it's hand to hand. I would treat it more where you have two opponents squaring off, and it really becomes a battle for strength. Okay, so grappling scenario. Okay, so it's a strength versus strength attribute challenge. Now that's what that happens in this case, and then whoever wins gets the attempt. Okay, so that's what we're looking at here. So strength versus strength attribute. So we're going to go human fighter, randomize. Oh, nice. He gets a 10. And plus his strength attribute, let's say he's at a 3 strength. Okay, he's at 13. Nice, even number 13. Okay, the feral, let's see, the feral, we're going to randomize. Okay, the feral is a stronger creature by default, but let's see how we look randomly. So these are almost level, but the 2 is higher from my perspective, so we're going to go with 2. Okay, and a feral, for a feral, he's an average strength, so he's a 2, but ferals get double strength because they're stronger than humans, so 4. So even though 2 plus 4 is 6, he is definitely stronger by default. In this case, it didn't work out for the feral because he scored a 6. So in this case, the human won the attribute challenge versus strength. So meaning the grapple scenario is in the human's favor. Okay, so now the human has the feral right where he wants him, and he's going to try to throw this guy. Okay, so he's going to try to use the throwing technique and pulverize this guy in the ground. He knows that's the best chance he has. So techniques, we're going to go here, and boom, right there. Okay, make it, let's try it one more time just for the sake of illustration. Okay, nope. Okay, so that didn't work out too well. He tried to throw him, and for some reason just couldn't overpower the feral. Again, a lot stronger creature, so they're still in the process of wrangling. Okay, so now we have a new loop here. Okay, so let's see what options are available now to the feral. The feral doesn't like being in a grappling scenario. He's a kicker and a tumbler type, so he's more agile. So he's not comfortable here. So because the throw attempt failed, the attribute challenge, I guess, isn't an impact, you could say, in this example. So the feral character, even though he's stronger, he's a little more agile also. He wants to get out. So he's going to use the tumble technique. Okay, so he's going to try to tumble and acrobatically get out of the way. Okay, so let's see here. He's going to try that technique, and boom, it succeeds. So he's going to tumble out here. Let's see how. Take a look at the tumble technique real quick and see what that does. Okay, so always have, like I said, have a phone on handy, have some resources available so you can have them, so you can look up info as you need. So let's take a look here real quick. I want to make sure my numbers are correct. So let's see, Glyphs, let's go to the site here. Let's see how effective this tumble technique is that works. So let's go here. Let me just look up here the specifics for tumble. So tumble. Okay, so in my hand I have a copy of the Glyphs RPG Blueprint, again for reference. Ideally to have it on your cell phone by your side, or if you have a laptop, that's fine too. So tumble relies on acrobatics and low rolling movements to bring the fighter away from an attack. So this guy wants to get out of the way. Okay? Okay, so let's see. So X speed in one instance. So let's see how far he can move back. Now that we know the technique succeeded, how far can he tumble out of the way? So we're going to spin for the digits. So anytime you see a number sign, that means digits. So he's going to tumble 3 and 4. We're going to go with 3. So he wasn't able to go that far, but far enough from being thrown. So in this case, let's see. 1, 2, 3. Let's say, okay, my board is blocking the whole octagon. I want you to be able to see for the tutorial. So just for the sake of illustration, let's say he tumbles all the way back in here. 1, 2, 3, right? Let's say he's got himself in the very corner. Even though the corner is not a very smart position, he's away from this guy's throwing ability and punching ability, because this guy's a kicker. He wants to fend him off. So for the time being, the feral is pretty comfortable. Okay? So now the fighter is, the human fighter is up. Now keep in mind that when you use techniques, ether points are subtractive per uses. I'm not showing that here for the sake of illustration, but keep track of that as a game master if you're going to be using techniques. So in this case, Tumble users use 3 ether points of this guy's ether, but in this case, I don't want to get in all that. It's too much to show. Let's just keep it simple. So he tumbles out of the way. So now it's this guy's turn again. Okay, this guy's a puncher. Okay, a puncher and a thrower. So he wants to get in and close the gap again. So we got 1, 2, so 3 feet. How far can he reach? So a punch, we've talked about, let's see. Let's go to the combat chapter. Let's see here. So a punch, let's see. I believe he's going to be right in range. Let me double check here. My numbers just to make sure. So combat. We're going to go to combat types. So yeah, punching, yeah, limited to the M2 range. So punching 2 to 3 feet. Guess what? 1, 2, 3 gap. So he's barely out of range. So this guy wants to move in a little bit closer. Okay, he can move at let's see, his speed is 6, so he can move right in here in range. So this guy just backed himself into a corner is what he did. So he's going to move right here in his instant. Okay, that was his action. Now the feral is going to attack. Okay, and let's see. He doesn't want to really kick because he's close up. So he's I mean, at this point, the feral's uncomfortable. He's just going to throw another punch. In this case, he's going to try to punch him in the head. Okay, so this time the feral is going to attempt a focused attack, just punching the guy in the head. And let's see how that goes. Okay, and landed right here, so it's outside of the bullseye, so that's a miss. But guess what? The feral has +2 attempts, so he gets 2 more tries to hit. So here, it's barely a miss. We're going to try that one more time. Oh, 3. So, yeah, in this case, the feral, you could interpret as getting tired. He's starting to get agitated, and he definitely missed his punch in this example. So, the human fighter got lucky. The feral's nasty punch missed its target. And guess what? Now that it's a miss, this guy gets a go-ahead. So, he is, like I said, he's going to try to clobber this guy with a punch instead of throwing him this time. So, this time here, let's say here, let me get some practice in. Let me calibrate for a second. That's too much. No, I'm just calibrating here, and you can do that here to practice. Okay, he wants to use a punching technique to just knock this guy out. He's pretty tired of him too, so in this case, we're not going to use mark damage. We're going to use tiered damage with a punching technique. Like I said, the punch technique uses 3 ether points of damage, so you would subtract 3 ether from the guy that's using it. Okay, but in this case, we're not counting ether. We're just showing you. So, punching technique. First, the technique has to work. So here to here, okay, right in the big circle, and as you can see here, it landed right here. So I'll count that as an attempt. Now, so the technique works. Now let's see if the blow actually lands. Okay, so it's strong and hard enough to hit. Let's see if it actually does. So it's a very trained martial arts punch that's designed to decimate an opponent, is what the punching technique does. So let's see if the blow actually lands. Okay, and because we're hand to hand, the human fighter is +3 proficient. So he's a little bit better fighter is what it comes down to. So I get +3 extra attempts if I miss. So 1, but I didn't need to because I'm that awesome. So right in the bullseye, that's 1. So guess what? The punching technique worked, and the blow itself landed. So that's a pretty vicious blow. Now the technique, the punching technique, let's take a look at what the specs are on that to make sure my calculations are accurate. So punching, let's take a look at punching. Okay, so tier 1 of damage plus, so and it also gives tier 1 token slide when making a focus attack with fist. So that would have given him an additional token slide, which he didn't need because he already made it on the first shot, but it's tier 1 of damage plus your impact modifier. So tier 1 of damage. So in this case, even though it's hand to hand, it's a special technique. It inflicts tiered damage. We're going to look at the element glyphs for damage. 0 plus 2. So 2. So tier 2 damage is going to land on this guy's face unless this guy can defend. Okay? Let's see. Oh wait, this guy doesn't get a defense because he already tried to hit him. So let's see here. Okay. Let's do about it this way. Let's just end this round quick. This guy's going to punch. It hits. And boom. Let's see. So 2 damage. So 2 hit points of damage. And because it's hand-to-hand, by default hand-to-hand is 1 damage. So it's basically 2 hit points worth of damage is what it comes down to. Okay? Because the H to H only inflicts unarmed damage. So tier 2 damage, tier 1 damage is 1 times 1 if it's unarmed. So that's how you treat it in this scenario. So in this case it's 2. So 2 hit points of damage goes to this guy's head. Okay. So striking damage like we've talked about. So 2 hit points here. 1, 2, and then halved. 2 hit points halved is 1. So 1 to skeleton and then nothing to vitals. Okay. Actually, yeah, wait, it is to vitals because of striking damage. So guess what? This guy might be in trouble. So 2 hit points here. So this guy just took a very nasty bruise to the face is what it means. Okay. And then 2 hit points divided by 2 is 1. So 1 full hit point to the skeletal structure in his face. Okay. So not enough to destroy the skeleton itself, but the shocking striking force damage was enough to hit him really hard here. So 1 divided by 2 is what? It's a half, but we round up. So guess what? This guy here, you could interpret it one of 2 ways. Now because this is a non-lethal scenario, you could say this guy just got completely knocked unconscious because his HP was depleted from his brain. Okay, or that's one way you could do it because it's non-lethal. But if this was a combat scenario, you could say that literally just got knocked dead by a punch. So depends on which way the architect wants to go with it. That's what happened in the scenario. So in this lengthy hand-to-hand combat scenario, the believe it or not, the human fighter was victorious. Now, let's say again, if you wanted to use the modifiers, this is a time where you could use combat or karma points to save this guy. Or you could use a fate modifier like we've talked about. Okay, so otherwise that pretty much concludes the H2H, the hand-to-hand combat section. Just kind of give you an idea of how things can work out. And generally these can be a little bit longer in case you haven't noticed because you're dealing with non and less lethal type of damage involved here. So thank you for your time. Now let's move on to the next scenario. Let's talk about the surprise attack scenarios here that we're going to go over. The combat tutorial. So as I mentioned earlier, there are 2 types of surprise attacks. The first, probably the most common, is a calculated surprise attack, and the second is a blind surprise attack. So we're going to use the same grid paper for the scenario here. We're going to look at how each of them plays out. Okay, so in this example here, we have a rogue, and we have a lowly warrior guard, like a low-level warrior guard, just patrolling here. On this map, we have a gate here, completely locked here. He has the key, and the rogue wants to get in. In this example here, we have a large crate of equipment and a couple more crates over here to the side. So that just kind of gives you an idea of what the scenario looks like here and what this guy might try to do. So in the first example, let's look at a calculated surprise attack. So here, the rogue is patiently waiting. See, his vision is facing this direction, so he knows this guy's coming. He can hear him. And he's blended very nicely in his surroundings, so you could say he's very nicely hidden in the shadows here, or maybe he's camouflaged very well in his surroundings, or maybe he's cloaked with an invisibility spell or something. So regardless of what the scenario is, he's completely hidden from sight. Let's just say he's very quiet, he's hidden from sight, but he has a clear line of sight to everything here. So this guy, the rogue, clearly has the advantage. So we're not going to be considering initiative because it's pointless in this case. So for a calculated surprise attack to happen, here's what needs to happen. He's waiting. Okay, here comes the warrior guard to go check his station out, and let's say during the process the rogue threw a rock to make a little bit of noise to draw his attention over here so he could kill him. Okay, pretty common technique. So this guy just thinks he heard something as he was patrolling, and he's going to go slowly maneuver over to the rogue's position. This guy here is completely hidden from view, and he's going to approach, and guess what? He's nicely in range for a nice stiletto attack. So right off the bat, because he's concealed from view, he can go ahead and make a completely a perfect surprise attack, a focus attack to the guard's exposed area under his armor. So maybe the guard has chest armor, but he's not wearing something covering his abdomen, so the rogue is going to go straight for the gut with his stiletto. So that's what this guy's going to do. So in this example, you would treat it like a normal focus attack for that to happen. And in this case, our rogue is proficient +3 with his stiletto, so he gets 3 extra attempts if the token slide misses. So take a look at the board here. Let's see if I can make it on the first time. So right there, boom, that's definitely a hit without a doubt. So what just happened in this scenario, the rogue waited in ambush to jab his stiletto right into the guard's abdomen, and the focus attack here was successful. Now there is no defense opportunity here like in other combat scenarios because it's a surprise attack that succeeded. So right off the bat, this guard here just took damage to his abdomen. From this point on, you simply interpret damage like we normally do. Okay, see how bad he got wounded. Oh, guess what? So in this case, we got fire and carbon, so that's superficial damage. So basically, this guy just got pissed off pretty bad. So superficial damage, let's look at how badly he got scathed at this point. Oh, so 0. So 0, you could say that's 10, so that's a full hit point of damage in this context, or you could look at it from 0 to 9, depending on which way you want to go. So I'm going to go with 10 in this case. So let's say he suffered a full hit point of damage to his abdomen in this case. The digits happen to work out in my favor. So that's the stiletto in this example is a piercing weapon. So he suffered 1 hit point of piercing damage to his abdomen is what that translates to. So piercing damage goes clean through all organs simultaneously. In this case, there's no skeletal structure in the lower abdomen. So that's what he aimed for. So basically, the stiletto, let's see. Now, we're not going to factor in the weapon's multiplier damage because it did superficial damage. It didn't do tier damage, but in this case, it was pretty strong in the superficial range. So you could say it was strong enough to do enough of a stab wound to do 1 hit point of damage through each layer. So his abdominal tissue took 1 hit point of damage, and piercing damage goes clean through tissue. That's what it does. So in this case, the stiletto went straight into his vitals and sliced right into his insides very cleanly. And at this point, he's very wounded, and he's probably going to die from internal bleeding. Now, let me see here. I'm not going to get into too much detail as far as the technicalities until we get into the structure chapter. I want you to see how everything's laid out in more detail in that chapter. But for all intents and purposes here, this guy's going to be bleeding out here. You could randomize it and say, within a few minutes or a few seconds, depending on what organ was hit. And we're going to go over that in detail in the structure chapter, which lays out that very scenario. So in this case, let's say he's very wounded here, he's incapacitated, and he's got about 10 more minutes to live before he bleeds out internally. You could say that. So that's essentially what happened in this scenario. Okay, that's for the calculated surprise attack. So this guy completely waited in ambush, took this guy out in one hit. Okay, that's one example. Now, another scenario is one of my personal favorites, called a blind surprise attack. Okay, now in this rogue, okay, he has the same objective. He wants to get to the through the corridor here and ultimately through this gate. But he wants this equipment crate here, and he's going to wait for the warrior guard, okay, to patrol through and try to catch him that way. Now, it's a blind surprise attack because he's completely hidden here, and so he can only rely on his sense of hearing to have a pretty good idea where this guy is. The rogue cannot see the guard coming, but he's listening and focusing very carefully to guess his position. Now, as this guy gets closer here, he's moving, he's patrolling, he's checking things out, and as he gets closer, the rogue, number one, will notice his footsteps approaching closer, and at some point he'll probably see a shadow right around here that'll give him a pretty good idea of how close he is just before he crosses over. So that's essentially the logic behind a blind surprise attack, is using the shadows and noise and things like that to pinpoint somebody's position without actually having a direct line of sight. Okay, you could have also said this guy's coming and he peeked out real quick, carefully, to kind of guess it too. You could do that if you want, but the purpose is you don't know exactly what his position is and what exact target you're hitting. You're just going to estimate it. That's what we're replicating here. So in this case, the warrior is doing his business over here. He's about to walk over and finish patrolling, or maybe grab some coffee or whatever. And we have the rogue waiting here, and he wants to execute a blind surprise attack for all intents and purposes. So the way we do that is, because we don't have a line of sight, we cannot do a focused attack. So to replicate the sense of blindness is we're going to close our eyes and do a free-form attack, okay? So just place your token in the middle of the action grid, close your eyes, and spin. And that's an attempt to replicate the conditions that the rogue will have in order for that attack to work. So in this case, it lands right here, so number 16, okay? Number 16, let's look at our targets here. His right hand. So basically, the rogue just leaped out here and jabbed his stiletto into this guy's right hand. Now, he had no defense opportunity. Again, it's a surprise attack. He never saw or heard it coming. So, this example here, he just thrust it out and jabbed his right hand. So let's randomize for damage here. Oh, and guess what? Superficial once again, okay? Not my night tonight. So let's determine how much superficial damage was inflicted. Okay, so we're going to go most center and upright was number 4. So he did 4 marks of damage to the hand. So in reality, he tried to pierce his hand and really just poked it really hard. You could argue that the blade didn't even go through his hand. It was just more like a nasty cut. A gash is what ended up happening. So now this becomes a whole different scenario, okay? Whereas this attack could easily kill somebody in one hit. It could also work against you, okay? In this case, this guard here just got a nasty gash in his hand and now is really pissed off. Now, at this point, it would turn into a regular combat encounter, okay? So that's pretty much all there is to that scenario. Now, had this attack hit another target, let's say it hit his head or his abdomen, and let's say my damage was lethal, then in that example, this guy would have been killed in one hit, no question. But in this case, he leaped out and he gashed his hand. This guy's a little pissed off now, a little bit scratched, and at that point it would become a regular combat encounter because I didn't actually kill this guy. So, but that just illustrates the dynamics of the surprise attacks. Okay, now one other thing here too that you could do. Okay, now again, because this is a game, we do have modifiers and attributes built in to help players survive such things. Okay, so that's the very clinical way of describing how these unfold. But let's say for example the rogue is waiting over here. Okay, we're going to do a calculated surprise attack. Right now, let's say this guy comes and boom, just like we did earlier, this guy gets killed. Right, or he's about to get killed. Now, as the architect, you could basically give, let's say this is a player character here and this is the bad guy, and you want to give him one extra opportunity to live. Rather than make him use a karma point or the traditional fate modifier, you could give this guy a chance to maybe sense danger, in his proximity. You know that the position he's going to, he has an extra sixth sense of some kind that warns him not to go, okay? Or you sense that something is behind you or in front of you that you better stop or investigate. So your spidey sense, so to speak. You could use the force attribute for that. Okay, that's one reason why that's there. So you could say make a force attribute challenge, and if you succeed, then you discover this guy or you avoid danger. In this case, let's say I want to do that. Just lightly, that wasn't a very good spin. Let me spin that a little bit better. Okay. So in this case, I spun a 9 to randomize plus my force modifier is 12, and let's say the architect is going to spin. Okay, see, the architect just spun a 10. So in this case, I was able to barely win that force attribute. So in this case, the player character won that challenge, and you could say that, oh, your sixth sense tells you not to approach further. There's something bad or something like that. So that's another way. That's another, I guess, saving throw against otherwise inevitable death that you could use in this type of scenario. Okay, so same thing here. Let's say he's waiting here. Blind surprise attack, he's coming here. And same thing, you could use the force attribute to determine the same thing. So again, spin, add in your force multiplier, and then the architect does the same thing. They spin, and whichever of the two is greater wins the challenge. So that's another way you could serve again, like I said, not only inevitable death, but using the fate modifier and the karma points for this particular type of scenario. Okay, so in closing, that summarizes the two forms of surprise attacks that we look at in Glyphs. And now, in this next quick scenario, I want to show you how stealth attacks work. So for those of you that fantasize about ninjaing somebody sometime, I'm going to show you the best way to go about doing that using the Glyphs RPG blueprint rules. In this scenario, we're going to look at a stealth attack. Okay, so basically what a stealth attack is a attack that you execute while being undetected. Okay, so to do that, very similar to a surprise attack, except there's movement involved. Okay, so in this case, my rogue, or in this case my ninja, has to get to this guard up here undetected. Okay, so there's a couple of ways you could go about doing that. First and foremost, the most prevalent way is simply by using the rogue's stealth walk skill. Okay, the rogue archetype, using that skill, is highly trained in moving silently and undetected. So that's the purpose for that skill. Or if the architect chooses, they could simply use it as an attribute challenge versus finesse to maybe move silently. If you have characters that are trying to mimicking it, that's one way you could do it, or simply do it as unskilled. There's a lot of different ways you could do it, but by default, we will be using the stealth walk skill, which pertains to the rogue archetype. So an assassin character, a thief, a ninja, so something of that nature. So in this example, we're going to go with a ninja. He wants to take out this guard. So he doesn't want to raise any alarms. He wants to end the confrontation immediately without anybody noticing. So the way we do that, the stealth attack is very simple. First, we need to make sure the stealth skill works. So we're going to try the stealth walk skill, okay, to get to the target. Okay, there's no line of sight here. He's hidden behind some crates here. The guard has moved forward. So first, we have to activate our skill. Now, two things to consider here in stealth. Okay, so for those of you game masters, going to be architects in Glyphs, factor in lighting conditions and any ambient noise in the environment when you're considering stealth. Okay, those are two very important elements to consider. So in this example here, let me take a look here. So, and here we have a corridor here, like your typical military type installation, and the Ninja wants to infiltrate. We got some equipment crates here and so forth. And here the lighting is pretty dim. Humming background noise going on ambiently. So a little bit of a distraction that the Ninja here can use to their too. Now, there, I know I mentioned a stealth attack chart in the combat chapter to refer to during those scenarios. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So the reason is that's already done the work for you to factor in ambient lighting and sound conditions, which translates to basically if you need to make any additional token slides or less token slides, not token slides, but difficulties in the execution of the skill. So in other words, by default, the way it's written in the book, a stealth attack has to overcome a difficulty of worthy for the stealth skill. That's default. But in this case, the dim lighting conditions and the faint noise in the background reduces that by 1 per the chart here. Okay, so I highly recommend getting one of the architect screens, but if not, it's in the book. It's right there. So basically, in this example, the my Ninja character, he has stealth and stealth walking to begin with. He's a level 5 in that skill. Okay, and he has -1 difficulty to overcome. So in the skills chapter and also on the architect screens, there are charts that show you how many token slides you need consecutively in the respective action grid shape in order for the skill to work. So in this example, the Ninja is level 5. The default difficulty for stealth walk attack is worthy, but in this case, the ambient conditions reduce it by 1. So in this case, it's moderate. So level 5 in the stealth walk and moderate. So based on that, I need 3 consecutive slides in the hexagon for the stealth walk to work. So I'm going to go ahead and do that here. So let's see if I get lucky. So 1, nope, I missed. So let's try that again. So 1, a little too hard. Okay, 2, barely, and then 3. Yep, right on the 25. So in this example, 3 consecutive slides activates the stealth walk skill. Okay, so I look at my moving speed here. How quick, how advanced, how much can he advance in 1 instant in time? So here, speed is 5, land is 5. So my Ninja character can move 5 feet in 1 instant during that skill usage. So I would do 1, 2, 3. So I'm gonna move. I can definitely move here. So I'm very stealthy here. My skill succeeded in this case. So I'm undetected. Now that I'm undetected, I'm behind him. I'm already in position to strike. So at that point, you simply execute a freeform attack. So in this case, he wants to sneak up behind the guard and slit his throat with his knife. Okay, nice, clean, quiet attack. That's what he's going for. So in this case, proficient, +3 with the dagger, and we're gonna go for the kill. Boom, nice bullseye shot. So in this case, the Ninja literally just sneaks up behind him undetected, wraps his arm around his head from his face, and then just slits his throat. Now for damage here. Okay, now on a stealth attack, let me just say something. There are 2 schools of thought here. The first school of thought is that if the stealth attack succeeds and you're able to hit your focus attack, then that should qualify as an insta-kill without having to roll damage. And in some cases, I would agree with that. In this case, I would actually take that if somebody suggested that to me. Okay, so that's one approach you could take. But the way it's written in the book, we interpret damage. Okay, so in this case, because if you have superficial damage, as in the last example, that could change the outcome. So depending on what school of thought you subscribe to, that's totally fine. Again, it's your game. Do as you please. In this example, it's a nice clean hit, and guess what? It's a tier 3 strike. So tier 3 strike, and the dagger is a cleaving damage in this example, and it's tier 2. So that's 6 hit points worth of damage. So that's a pretty brutal strike through this guard's neck. So basically what just happened in this example, so here's the head, here's the guard's neck here. So 6 hit points is a whole lot. So Tissue has 2, so he did way more. Okay, there's really not a lot of skeletal structure here, just the backbone or whatever. But basically, he still cleaved through that, and any vital organs here on the neck. So he basically, you could interpret that as he completely decapitated the guard, or almost decapitated, depending on how detailed you want to get. But that is definitely an insta-kill. Whether I decided to interpret damage or not, in this case I chose to interpret damage, and that's still an insta-kill. So this guy here just got totally ninja'd out. Okay, now that's a conventional approach to stealth. Now back to what I was saying earlier about the force attribute. Let's rewind for a second. Let's say we're not factoring in karma or the fate modifier. Let's say this guy's ninjaing around, right? And this guy's, doing his routine, and the rogue's stealth walk succeeds. Okay, this is an opportunity that an architect could say, you know what, do a force attribute challenge. Okay, your saving throw, with your sixth sense to sense. This is your last opportunity to sense that something's coming, but to save your ass is what essentially they're trying to say. So you could, at this point, as this is going on before he kills him, say do a force attribute challenge. Okay, so the character would spend a 7 in this case, plus her force attribute would be 3, so 10, and then the architect would spend, and it's a 10, so they're nice and even. So in this case, you would repeat the process until somebody wins or loses, and in this case, if the player character wins, then you could say, you know what, you became suddenly aware, you get this really bad feeling that somebody was staring through you, you're about to do something really bad. You could say that you perceived it, and in this case, that would give them a chance to react. Okay, you could do that. Okay, if the attribute challenge fails, then obviously it proceeds like it normally just did, and this guy just gets totally ninja to death. Okay, so that right there is a classic stealth attack. Okay, pretty straightforward. It's a very nice way for a rogue type character or somebody playing something similar to clear out a room if they're good with their token slides. Okay, so see how smooth that was? They have to be good enough to be able to hit from the G logo in here in the adequate shapes enough times, so they have to be comfortable sliding the token. Okay, and also doing freeform and focus attacks. So from here, see, nice freeform attack. So just again, be very comfortable sliding index finger or middle finger here, and just use your arm, nice and easy. See, I'm using my arm, I'm not flicking it, as little as possible. See, use your arm. So be comfortable with that motion. That's going to help you succeed from both ranges. Okay, just wanted to throw that at you. So that concludes the stealth portion of this. Now I want to go over one more combat example that's kind of going to blend everything together with multiple combatants. Okay, so stay tuned. This example combat scenario, we're going to take a look at a more conventional approach that most people are used to in role-playing, that being the conventional party approach. So most role-playing sessions generally have parties of 3 to 4 players at a time versus the opponent. So now that we're pretty familiar with how combat dynamics work, and you've seen some examples of how the different forms play out, now I just kind of want to put it all together for you in this scenario here, so you can see what a combat encounter would look like with multiple party members against an enemy. So in this case here, we have a human warrior and an elven priest character here, and they've stumbled upon by accident a nightshade dragon's lair. Okay, so that's going to be the black token here, and they caught it in the middle of consuming a meal by surprise, and their presence alerted them. So in this case, we're not going to treat it like a surprise attack. We're just going to go with a conventional combat scenario, so to illustrate what it's going to look like with multiple people involved. Because so far you've only seen 1 against 1 to show the dynamics. Now we're going to take it a step further, which in all likelihood is something you're probably going to see when you're in the middle of a campaign, because there's usually more than 1 people that play. So that's what we're going to do here, and we're going to take into account not only the combat dynamics but also skills and maybe powers here. Got a couple power users here, and techniques. So we're going to try to put everything together a little bit more for you to illustrate combat. So, another thing I've said before, besides the techniques and skills and modifiers and your actual skill in using token slides and so forth, that in itself is the heart of combat. But the other piece that's going to keep in Glyphs and level up your character is teamwork. Okay, that's the other piece of this that we haven't really talked about much. So Glyphs, as you've seen probably by now, that the combat system lends itself very much to strategy, making good decisions, a little bit of luck in some cases, but a lot of it's very skill driven. Okay, so the other piece to that is teamwork. Okay, and I've noticed this over many play sessions that if people don't work together as a team, generally things can fall apart pretty quick. So in my example here, I have an awesome group that I've been running for quite a while, but there's a lot of inter-party. Personally, I think it's pretty awesome because it definitely changes things up, and I like it when players kind of run the game. I'm very much about free will and letting them do that, and we have a great time. But when it comes down to things can fall apart very quickly for the individual player if they're not working together as a team to eliminate the threat. So that's what's interesting about this system, is that you're almost forced to make not only good decisions but work together, because every character has a very specific set of skills and abilities and equipment, and also an approach to combat. So we're going to see that here in just a second. So let's get into our scenario here. So our player characters have stumbled upon a layer of a night that is finishing consuming its meal. So if you have your RPG blueprint here handy, I'm referring to the default Nightshade Dragon here in the book. Okay, just for illustration purposes, feel free to use your own creatures, create your own, and we're going to talk about that later. But for reference purposes, I'm going to be using the Nightshade Dragon here in the Glyphs RPG blueprint. Okay, so that's what they're going to be fighting. So first, like we always do, we have to determine who gets the initiative. So I'm going to start with the Nightshade Dragon and spin. Okay, 0, so 10. I'm going to factor in the initiative modifier. Let's take a look here. So the Nightshade Dragon gets 15. Okay, then I'm going to work my way around to the Sorcerer. Okay, that's an 8. And the Sorcerer's attributes, let me look at my stats here on the side. So my Sorcerer, the Daemon Sorcerer, he has an initiative, of 6 plus 8. So that puts him at 14. That's going to be pretty cool. We're going to get to the Warrior here in the middle. Let's spin that a little bit better to randomize. And, not looking too good for the Warrior. We have 2 plus the Warrior's modifier, initiative 7. So total is 7 initiative for the Warrior and the Priest, the Elven Priest. We have 9, okay, plus the Elven Priest's initiative modifier. Let's take a look at that. So Elven Priest initiative, so 4. So that puts him at a total of 13 for initiative. So now that we've done the initiative, we have a pretty good idea of how the combat loop is going to flow. Now, again, I may or may not have said this before, but the way the book is written, you should be able to do initiative every single loop. Okay, that is strictly there just for realism, because initiative has a lot to do with a character or a monster's moving speed. So if you really want to reflect how realistic that is, then you would theoretically redo initiative every single loop, because something very quick isn't just going to sit there and let you hit it. So that's in there in the book, like I said, for realism. But in most games and most scenarios, especially when you got a few people playing, you want to keep initiative one time and repeat the loop. At least that's what I do for my players, and it seems to work out well. So again, it's your call, it's your game, do as you please. But that's what I'm going to be doing here. So in this case, we're going to use initiative once, and we're just going to repeat just for the interest of time. Okay, so I just wanted to point that out. So in this case here, the dragon has the first attack. So the Nightshade Dragon, in this example here, the layer, okay, it's a dim cave. There is a little bit of natural lighting here coming from the outside. A few holes were punctured in the layer over time, I guess you could say. So there is a little bit of natural light in here. Okay, And then here you have some rock formations scattered about that could provide some cover for our characters. So that's kind of a general overlay here. Now in this case, each hexagon is going to be 5 feet of moving space. Okay? So, what attack does the Nightshade Dragon want to go? So he knows he's got 10 feet of space between him and the characters, and his first target is right in front of him. So the warrior, in this case, is more of a Highland or Scottish type of a warrior. He's wearing a silver breastplate, and I'm wearing a large claymore sword, and he's got a shield as well to protect him. So, I mean, these guys are fairly well equipped to handle some pretty nasty threats. But let's see what happens. So the Nightshade Dragon, right off the bat, he knows he's got that space to fill. Let's see what he wants to attack with. Let me look at his information here. So he could claw him, he could bite him, he could do a tail. So those are the options available to him. So he's 10 feet away. Let's see, he's probably going to try to strike the warrior with his tail. Okay, so he's going to use his long tail. This particular dragon's got a very elongated neck, a very long tail, kind of a slender body structure. So ripe for piercing attacks. Okay, he doesn't want to use his breath just yet. Okay, now normally the Nightshade Dragon would try to absorb all ambient light and make the room completely dark. Okay, generally, but in this case, there's a little bit of natural light flowing in, so that would be pointless. So he's just going to go ahead and attack with his tail and try to strike the warrior in the chest. He's going to make a focus attack, okay, to the warrior's chest right off the bat. That's his instinct, okay? Again, this could go about a lot of different ways here. So, let's see, the tail thrust, okay. Let's see. He's proficient +1 and inflicts piercing and or cleaving damage. So in this case, he's going to do a nice piercing strike. So the very end of his tail's got like a spear, like a spearhead, very sharp instrument. So let's see what happens. So the Nightshade Dragon is going to attack the warrior, and then let's see if he's in range. I do believe he is. That's a pretty long tail. Okay, tail thrust. Let's see. Oh yes, he's definitely in range. S1, so short one. Okay, so short one we've said is 4 to 10 yards, so about 30 feet or so. So yes, he's definitely in range. So he's going to attack with his tail. So let's do a focus attack like we normally do here, and that's barely a miss. It's right on the edge. I'm going to say that's a miss. I'm going to do it one more time. I have not calibrated today, by the way. So let me calibrate real quick. Nope, that's a miss. So, okay, this one counts, and boom. That's a miss. Yeah, I'm not with it today. So in this case, the Nightshade Dragon tried to thrust the warrior with his tail, and it's a complete miss. Okay? So now the warrior gets to counterattack. Okay? He gets it would be almost as if he had evaded. So now it's the warrior's turn to counterattack what the Nightshade Dragon did. Now, in this case, the warrior he's only armed with a very heavy claymore, brutally long sword and a shield. So he wants to get in closer to fill the gap between the Nightshade Dragon. So he's going to take his action to move in and close the gap a little bit. He wants to go cleave this thing before, cut its long neck off. That's what he's wanting to do at this point. So, let's see. Let's look at the warrior here. The warrior can move 5 feet in 1 instant. So he's going to use his instant towards the Nightshade Dragon. But he also wants to get a little bit closer to some cover. So let's say he's going to move diagonally. Okay, 1 hex. Okay, his vision's still here. So that's his action. His counter action. Okay, so let's say that's his counter attack, because he can move any action. Because since it was a miss, it's as if he had evaded the attack is what it amounts to. So nice opportunity there. And then, okay, next on the initiative list is the sorcerer with a 14. So the sorcerer, okay, knows that he's a fairly weak fighter. In this case, he's not equipped to front line, so he wants to stay in the back here. He's going to take a move over here closer to the rock formation for cover, because he knows if that dragon uses a magical power or his breath weapon, he could probably be in trouble. So knowing that, the sorcerer is going to come a little bit closer here. Let's see how fast he can move. So yeah, the Daemon sorcerer can move 6 feet in 1 instant. This is 5 feet, so yeah, he qualifies. He's going to move over closer to here. He's got some cover now. Okay, so that's his action. And now we go to the Elven Priest. And similar situation here. He's not a very strong frontline fighter. That's the warrior's job. And it's really his job to make sure the whole party survives and is healed from any damage. So he's also going to do the same thing. He's probably going to get behind a little bit of cover here, just in case this dragon decides to use its breath or a special magical power they're not aware of. So he's going to do the same thing. He's going to go ahead and move behind a little bit of behind the rock formation. And he can move 4 feet in one instant. So this is 5 feet. So in reality, he's almost there. So you could say that he's about a foot or so away from cover in this instant. So he's close enough, but in reality, he's not close enough for cover if something were to happen in that instant. So just keep that in the back of your mind. He's really close to the rock formation. If he were to strike, he could still get hit unless he moves. So just keep that in. Now, finally on the initiative list, we have the warrior again. Now, it's his actual turn, okay? This last move was a counter movement, but now it's his actual turn, okay? So, once again, the warrior wants to close the gap a little bit, okay, between him and the Nightshade Dragon, and he's going to try to go forward this time. He's going to move forward, okay, to bridge the gap. So now, there's enough distance between him and the dragon with his weapon. So now he's within striking range, okay? So about a 5-foot gap or so, nice distance there. So now we repeat the cycle, okay? Like I said, instead of spinning initiative every single loop, that right there, what you just saw is the conclusion of one combat loop. The entire loop is complete when everybody takes their turn. So that's one loop that you just witnessed, okay? So now we're going to repeat down the list here. So we're going to go back to the Nightshade Dragon. It's his turn. So this time, he's going straight for the warrior again, okay, because he's the closest, and this guy is still a little bit hungry. So he's going to try to swipe him with his claws. So slender arms there, okay, and they have dark crystalline formations around his claws, so not something you want to get hit with. So he's got to be M2 range. Nope, he's not in range, so that's not going to work. M1 is not going to work, so he's not quite in range yet. You know what? I think this time he will try to use his breath. So he's looking at him here. The vision comes over here. So he's going to try to use his breath weapon, his Nightshade breath. Okay, so it's made of cold shadow is what it shoots out from his breath weapon to try to pulverize the warrior here in a flurry of cold shadow is what he's going to try to do. So that's what the dragon's going to do. So let's take a look here at the stats. So yeah, S4, he's definitely in range. And it's got an effectiveness of 5, so no matter what armies he's wearing, it's going to hurt pretty bad. Okay, damage would be tier 2 if it hits. So let's make a focus attack with the dragon's breath. Okay, he's gonna just try to shoot the warrior in the chest and in his torso region. That's what he's going for right now. So let's see here. Let's go ahead and make a focus attack. Let me calibrate once. Okay, that would have been a hit. So now this one counts. And boom, right dead center. So that is a hit with the Nightshade Dragon's breath weapon. So the only thing at this point that the warrior sees is, like I said, a haze of dark, cold, liquid shadow shooting out of the dragon's mouth. At this point, he's not close enough to any cover, so he's going to try to block that attack with his shield. He's got a nice shield to compensate, okay? Knowing that. So in this case, we're going to do a defense opportunity as a block. So what do? We've seen this before already. Okay, we're going to spin to randomize the digits. So 4, and let me look at my chart here for blocking. So digits plus the block modifier. Let's see, let me write this down. So 4 plus, and then the warrior to block with his shield in this case. Let's see. So block is 4. That's 8 plus, let's see in here. plus the advantage of his shield. So his shield is pretty nice. So let's just say, let's give it a 7 advantage. Okay, let's see, his shield is 7 advantage. So pretty sturdy. So that gives him 15 total towards his block attempt. Now I'm going to spin for the Nightshade Dragon. Okay. Okay, the Nightshade Dragon just spun a 6. And then, let's see, plus his impact modifier. Now in this case, yeah, let's see, impact modifier versus a dragon. Let me look it up here real quick. It's 4, so 10. And then weapon advantage. Now, does a breath weapon have advantage? I do not have advantage listed in that because advantage is something for more physical and heavy, like a sturdy weapon or a heavy set of armor. You know, that sort of thing. In this case, we're not looking at advantage for a breath weapon, so there is none. So in this case, the warrior was able to block the breath weapon with his shield to cover his body before he gets consumed. So now in this case, because he was able to block it, the shield is going to absorb the damage for him, and there is no shock value in this case. So that's a great thing for the warrior. So what just happened here? So now let's see how much damage the shield takes. Okay. Okay, spun, and like I said, like we always do, you should know by now, we're looking at element glyphs for damage. So 0 plus 2, so we're going here to clockwise, is 2. So that's tier 2 attack, so not bad. So tier 2, and the breath weapon for the Nightshade Dragon, let's see, does tier 2. So it's 4 hit points worth of damage to the shield. So now here I got my makeshift charts here. So let's see, let's look at the shield here. I got some armor pieces here. There's the shield, it's a nice silver shield. Okay, so 4 hit points of damage. So from 37, we have 33. Okay, so that's what just happened here. And his shield, you could say, has a nice coating of black liquid cold shadow. Okay, so he doesn't want to imagine what would have happened if that would have actually hit. The shield worked, so that's pretty awesome. Now, because it is a block, all of his energy, all the warrior's energy was used to neutralize the attack. So in this case, he will not be counterattacking. Okay? So now, let's move on to the next down the initiative here. So now we have the Sorcerer. Okay? Sorcerer has the next initiative, and he's got some nice distance to cover here, and he's got a little bit of coverage, so he's going to use a power to try to take this dragon out. Okay? Let's see what powers we have for the Daemon Sorcerer in this particular scenario. So let's look at my stats here. And, oh, he's got a couple nice abilities here. He's going to go ahead and use a Fire Stream ability. So it's just exactly what it means. He can shoot a nice long stream of flames from his hands. Let's see if he's in range for 3 in this ability. So he's got that ability, that power maxed out, and he's 1, 2, 3. So he's about 4, roughly. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. So about 5 hexes away. So he's about 25 feet away from the Nightshade Dragon. So let's see if he's in range real quick. So let me the powers for that and see if he's in range. So Sorcerer, again, make sure to have the blueprint handy at all times so you can reference quickly. We want to have maximum game time as possible. So Fire Stream, he's level 3. So level 3 means it inflicts tier 3 damage and any burning damage that's left over. So he wants to set this guy on fire. He suspects that he's weak against fire too, considering his type of attacks. So in this case, that's what he's going to try to do. And the range is S1, so it's 30 feet roughly, so about 10 yards. So this guy here is right in range from his fire attack. So the Sorcerer is going to do that very thing. So to do that, to activate his power, he needs to, let's see, Fire Stream. He needs to slide the token into the big circle here from the G logo. So that's what we're going to do here. Now let me calibrate real quick. And okay, that was a calibration. Let me calibrate. Let me just warm up for a second. Okay, right about there. And this one will count. So that's what we're going to try to do here. So right there. I think I barely made it on the very end. No, that's a miss. No, I didn't make it. So it was right out here. So in this case, the sorcerer tried to activate his spell, his Firestream spell, to hit the dragon, and the spell failed. It didn't work, or you could say it missed. Okay, so that's his action. Okay, now obviously you subtract ether from every time you use it, so that's what we would do. Again, I'm just being clinical here, so we're going to move quick. So that's what happened. So he tried to shoot his Firestream and it failed. Okay, because I missed my token slide in this example. So next, we have the priest. Okay, what is the priest going to do? The priest, the elven priest, let me see, what can he do? Okay, he has a couple powers available to him that he might be able to attack with, but it's so early in the battle that he thinks it's probably better to wait and see if he needs to recover any of his party members first. That's, remember what I said about teamwork. You know, another thing is interesting too. With all the games that I've ran and played over the last while now, I rarely have ever seen any priest or healer characters. I don't know why that is. I think it's quite interesting considering just how easy it is to die here. But just a side note here, this guy is going to wait right here strategically in case he needs to heal somebody. So that's what he's going to do. So he's going to wait. Okay, so that's his turn. Now it's the warrior's turn. The warrior, okay, he successfully blocked his attack from the dragon's breath. So now he is going to try to do a focus attack to cleave the Nightshade Dragon's neck. Now, let me see here. Let me pull up the Nightshade Dragon's stats here, weaknesses. So, yeah, the Nightshade Dragon, if you look at any entities, they have set weaknesses and resistances. So the weakness section will tell you, you know, basically how to kill that creature, what they're weak to, or just plain out how to kill them. So if it loses enough blood, fire will inflict double damage. So had this guy done his job right, he could have had some serious damage there. Okay, or vital overrun. So this guy here, the Nightshade Dragon, can die from conventional means. So the warrior is going to go ahead and try to do a cleaving attack to its long neck. And he is in range now, so that's what we're going to do here. Now the warrior, with his claymore sword, is proficient +3. Again, just a very clinical example. We're just going to throw numbers out. So here, and let's make a focus attack from the molecule right there. Boom, perfect bullseye. So that is a nice clean hit. Now, the Nightshade Dragon, because of its structure and the way it moves, isn't really able to parry an attack, so that modifier is out. So it can try to block, or in this case, it's going to try to get out of the way. Okay, kind of jerk its neck back from that attack that otherwise will hit. So here, let's do, again, evade. So we're going to do this for the Nightshade Dragon because he's the defender in this case. So 5. Okay, so 5, and then we're going to add his evasion modifier in. To evade is 5, so that's 10, and let's see. So that's all he gets is 10. That's why this is a riskier move, by the way, because you get less numbers to factor in. That's the reason why that is. So he gets 10, and the warrior gets, we're going to spin the digits. Oh, 9 plus his impact modifier. So how hard is this guy going to hit is what we're looking at. Impact modifier. The warrior's impact modifier. Let me find his chart here. Is 3. Plus, because the weapon is striking and hitting, we're going to look once again at the weapon's advantage. So again, how strong and sturdy is the weapon itself? That's what advantage basically measures. So advantage of this particular weapon, it's a pretty hefty claymore sword. So we're going to give that an advantage of 7. That is very strong, by the way. So right now, let's see, that gives me 19 total. So that is definitely a hit. The dragon was unable to jerk back its neck in time. It was unable to evade. So that is a clear-cut cleaving attack with the claymore. So let's look at damage. Let's spin for damage and see what we're dealing. Oh, and that is a critical hit. You could consider a critical hit as a tier 3 damage. So in this case, see how level these are? So we're going to go here. Let's go, yeah, this is about the same. So let's just go with this one. So tier 3 in this example, let's just say. So tier 3 damage times his weapon damage is, let's see. What is the weapon damage here? Okay. 5. So that's 15 hit points of damage to the Nightshade Dragon's neck. Now, let me show you something real quick. This here is meant, these charts here are more for more humanoid characters. That's why hit points are allocated the way they are. So these are not very good for monsters, okay? Because monsters can have a whole different range of hit point calculations, because that's what makes them more challenging. In this case, that is one of those examples. So I'm improvising here just for my own notes here, but just keep that in mind. So in this case, the Nightshade Dragon took 15 points of damage, of cleaving damage. So meaning that sword is going to slice clean through. Now, the Nightshade Dragon's skin is pretty strong. So he's got, in this example, he's got 50 hit points of tissue, of localized hit points to his tissue, to be able to cleave through it. That's pretty strong. Okay, just to give you an idea here. So he's now down to 35 on his neck. Now, because the cleaving attack was not strong enough to cleave through the flesh, we're just going to say it did 15 hit points of damage to the dragon's neck on the flesh. So nice gash, very nice cut, beautiful attack. But again, this guy is pretty strong. So that's when you're going to see where hit points can definitely add up with monsters. That's what makes things more challenging. So that happened here. So beautiful attack, and now down the list. Okay, so guess what? Based on the initiative, now it's the Nightshade Dragon's turn. Okay, so let's see, 5 feet away, and let's take a look and see what options are available to the Nightshade Dragon. Okay, M2, how far? 3 feet. So no, he's still not quite in range to hit him with anything close. So he's just going to do another tail strike. Okay, in this case, he's going to coil his tail around and do more of a whipping motion to try to cleave through this guy. Try to maybe decapitate the warrior. Okay, nice cleaving attack with the end of his tail. That's what the Nightshade Dragon is going to try to do to the warrior. Okay, so here we're just going to do a focused attack. It's a miss. Let's see how proficient he is with the tail. I believe I said proficient +1. So, yeah, so I only get one more extra attempt to hit and see. It's a miss in this case because it went out. So the Nightshade Dragon tried to whip this guy and cleave him with his tail, and it's a miss. So guess what? The warrior, once again, gets a counterattack with his, in this case, Claymore. He's going to do another cleaving attack to the neck to try to... He's already got a nice dent in, a nice gash in his dragon's neck, so he's going to try to do that again. Okay, that worked out pretty well last time. So that's his counterattack opportunity. So that's what we're going to do. Oh. Okay, I'll get 3 more because he's proficient +3. Okay, that's right on the edge there, on the line. So generally you want to accept that. I will go ahead and accept that. Again, it's very clinical here. So that's a hit. And he can't defend because he already had his option. So now let's just spin for damage. See how quick things can go in actual practice. Okay, blue. Oh wait, no, here. I'm starting from the top and working my way around. So yellow and blue, once again, is a critical hit with the sword. So we're just going to summon up here for 15 damage. This guy is doing pretty beast today. So let's see. So now He was down to 35 in his neck for tissue. Now he's down to 20 localized hit points for tissue in his neck. So his neck is, the dragon's neck has got a pretty on his side, so you can tell he's starting to get a little bit injured here. So the warrior is doing pretty good in this case. Now, let's go down the list here. So we're going to go down to the sorcerer. Okay, the sorcerer is going to make another attempt to use his fire stream attack. Okay, to finish this guy off. He can see that the warrior is knacking him pretty bad. He wants to go ahead and make himself useful. So here, once again, let me calibrate. Okay, that would have hit if that was an actual attempt. So let's try it again for real. Okay, boom, right in the circle. So this time, the sorcerer is able to activate his fire stream power. Nice shot. Okay, into the dragon. So we're going to go ahead and do that here to activate the power. And now, one modifier that is available, as you're going to see in the next chapter, the Ether chapter, is the power modifier. It's going to activate what's called an etheric shield. So any character or monster that's hit with a power that doesn't benefit it gets the opportunity to activate an etheric shield that basically nullifies the power. That's basically, the power modifier functions as sort of a saving throw versus a power. That's something we're going to talk about here in the next chapter here. So in this case, let's see. I'm not going to use that modifier just because this is a clinical fight. I don't want to use that in this example. I want to move on. But this, the dragon would have the opportunity to use their power modifier to see if this power actually damaged him or not. Just want to make you aware of it. Again, we're going to talk about it in the next chapter. So let's say this guy does his damage, right? So let's see. Spin. And let's see what damage he does. Okay. So 0 plus 0 is 0, so it's basically superficial. So for power's sake, we'll just treat it as a regular tier 1 damage. Okay? Or we can respin it. Let's, you know what? Let's respin that. Okay, I want to really mess this guy up. Let's respin it here. Okay. Nice and level, so we'll go with 1. Okay, tier 1 damage. And fire stream. Let's see. Let me take a look at what fire stream does. So he inflicted 3 hit points of damage plus burning damage. So basically now the dragon's neck is on fire, and until it's extinguished, it's going to be continuing to burn, and he's going to lose hit points every instant is what this means now. So he's down to 17 hit points from 20 on his neck, and each instant he's going to lose some hit points because now he's on fire. Okay, so pretty nice attack there. Good job, sorcerer. So let's see. Let's see how long he's going to be on fire for. Okay, so 4 instants. So the fire is going to last about 4 seconds before it fades off. So let's just go ahead and do that. So 4 instants. Okay, you can track that anywhere you want here. So fire damage is 4 instants. Okay. And let's say each instant after that, again, you could do this every single instant. It's better just to do it in one shot, again, to save time if you want to do that. You have the leisure to do that. Okay, so here and here. So we're going to go here to clockwise because these are levels. So let's go with 2. So let's do 6 hit points of damage every instant. So let's see. So it's going to do up to 24 hit points worth of damage by the time, in a few seconds is what it's going to come down to. I'm just making notes here. So this guy here is on fire. He's not very happy. He's definitely hurting. And let's see. Let's look at the... let's see. Right now, he wants to stay right where he's at. No, you know what? Let me take a second here. Let me see what he can do again. I want to make sure we get to finish this guy off as quick as possible. Let's see what the priest is armed with. He might actually take a chance to go fight now that this guy's pretty weakened. He's wielding a pretty solid iron staff. And he's got very light, or actually medium fabric armor over his entire body except his head. So, you know, if he really has to, he can fight. So that's, I guess, what he's going to do because this guy's getting hurt pretty bad. So he's going to use his action to move forward. And that's what he's going to do. So let's just move up here a little bit. Okay, that's the priest action. And now we're going to repeat the cycle here. That's the end of the loop. We're going to go back to the Nightshade Dragon. It's his turn. And so again, he just lost another, let's see, another 6 hit points to his neck. Okay, the tissue, we haven't even talked about skeleton vitals yet. It hasn't gone through yet until it's depleted. Okay. Let's see. Let me look at the chart here. So he just lost 6. So now his neck is down to 11 hit points on his tissue where his wound is, so pretty bad here. The fire's still going for a few more seconds. Okay, that's kind of the scenario we've got going here. And now it's the dragon's turn. He's going to use his breath again. Okay, except this time he tilts his head slightly and he's going to take a shot at the guy that just scorched his neck. Okay, so he's going to use his Nightshade Breath to try to take out the sorcerer. So we got 5, 10, 15, so about 20 feet away. He's in range for the Nightshade Breath. So that's what we're going to do. Let's take a look here. And by the way, this guy, he's close to cover, but because he shot out his fire stream, he's actually technically exposed. So let's see what happens to the sorcerer. So Nightshade Breath, we're going to go from here to here. And it is a direct hit. It is pretty vicious stuff. And guess what? The sorcerer just took a direct hit with Nightshade Breath. So pretty nasty stuff. So he is covered in cold shadow breath, I guess you could say. So pretty nasty stuff. It's almost like an effect of liquid nitrogen. Okay, plus magical effects. So let's see. Pretty much too quick to dodge too, so he's not going to be able to dodge that. Okay, in this example. So we're going to spin and see how much damage the dragon does. So water plus fire, so 1 plus 0, let's say 1. So tier 1 worth of damage times the breath's damage itself. Let's take a look. Nightshade Breath does tier 2 damage, so this guy only lost 2 hit points of damage. And let's see, the breath, let me see what happens when you get hit. So the Nightshade Breath, again, a spray of liquid shadow inflicts freezing damage and also reduces target's EP by the same amount dealt. So this guy here, you know, again, just lost 2 hit points to his flesh. And he also lost 2 ether points because the magical effect behind this breath is you also lose ether points in this example. So what just happened here? So the breath pretty much hit his entire, and everywhere from his torso all the way up to his face. Now you could say that, let's see, what kind of armor are we looking at here? Let's take a look at exactly what happened. Very clinical here. Let's look at the sorcerer. So the sorcerer isn't wearing any protection on his head or face. So 2 hit points literally just froze his entire face of the tissue, because 2 hit points consume tissue, okay, of freezing damage, just completely froze his face off in liquid shadow. Okay, for his upper torso, okay, you could say here he's protected by light bone armor. Okay, so that took 2 hit points of damage here. So 14 lower torso, same thing, I guess you could say. Okay, and so really, in my opinion, the breath was concentrated in here. So really, his armor protected his skin from being completely frozen off, but his face got affected. So in this example here, the sorcerer just got his face completely frozen off, and liquid shadow is still stuck to his face. So he's in severe pain right now, and this guy is basically out of commission. Okay, he's technically still alive, but for combat purposes, he's going to lay behind here and just hope he doesn't die. Okay, maybe this guy can make himself useful now. Okay, so that's what just happened here. Now let's go to, okay, the sorcerer. That would have been his turn. Again, he's in agony right now, so let's skip him. Now we're going to go to the priest. Okay, guess what? The priest priority just changed. I'm trying to finish this guy off to get this guy. And by the way, the dragon just took more damage because he's still on fire. Okay, we got to remember to track that. I know it's hard when you got all these things going on at the same time, just like every game. But basically here, the dragon just lost another hit point of damage, or actually 6. So where does he stand? So he's only got 5 left on the neck before he starts getting damage to his vitals under there. So in reality, in 1 more second or so, he's going to be really bad shape. So the priest, okay, he sees his comrade over here just got severely injured by Nightshade Breath. He has, let's see, 1, 2, 3, so about about 25 feet of space between the two. So he wants to heal him. So let's see. Let's take a look and see if he can do that remotely or if he has to get close. Let's look at the Elven Priest stats. So he can do cure damage, and he's a level 3. So he has to hit the square from here to be able to activate his power. It's in range. Okay, I'm just going to pull up the priest archetypes power here on the Glyphs website. I want to see if he's in range. Okay, again, nice to have this at your fingertips. Okay, so priest, let me see. Thaumaturgy, cure damage. Okay, he's level 3. And level 3, he can actually cure multiple targets simultaneously. Okay, but he only needs to cure this guy, so single target, let's say he's going to approach it as level 2. He can be between S2 and S3. So this guy's clearly in range to be healed remotely. So the priest is going to raise his staff, his iron staff, and channel his power through it and shoot the sorcerer with his cure damage power to try to recover his face. So that's what he's going to do. So here, he's a nice green ray of energy shoots out from the priest and hits the sorcerer. That's what we're going to try to do here. So let me calibrate here. That was nice. So let me do it one more time. This one counts. And right there. So that is definitely a success with the power. And this guy here, per instant, okay, just recovered, let's see. He just got his face healed up, you can say. Okay. And now he's going to be back in commission, okay? So that's what just happened here. So now, guess what? As this happened, okay, the last second of fire just inflicted another 6 hit points of damage on the dragon's neck. And guess what? Now we're starting to get into the tissue. Now it's starting to affect the dragon's insides of the neck. That's what I guess you could interpret it. So the fire here, let's see. So, okay. So on the dragon's neck, okay, where everybody's pretty much been concentrating their attack, is now down to -1 hit points for tissue. So his tissue in the neck region is scarred and chopped up and burned really bad to where now his vitals are exposed in that area. So let's take a look here. So he's still going, he's bleeding real bad, he's really injured. So really 1 or 2 hits can actually kill this guy here. So let's take a look and see what happens. So it's the dragon's turn. Okay. He's gonna go ahead and let's see, he just shot this guy. These guys are a threat, so he's gonna do, he wants to move forward this time and try to finish this guy off. Let's move forward here. That's his action, and he can move forward. Let's see, how fast can the dragon move? Because he's going to want to try to bite this guy's head off when he's close enough. That's what he's going to try to do in this example. So let's look at the Nightshade Dragon here. He can move 15 feet in 1 second, so this guy's really quick. Again, very light dragon, very quick. So he can definitely close the gap here. So he wants to get close enough here to the warrior to try to bite his head off. But he just used his action to move, so... But now he's in close enough. So now it is, let's see, whose turn is it now? Okay, Sorcerer's turn. He's back in commission. And he wants to make sure, now that the Sorcerer sees that the warrior is close enough to really be destroyed by the dragon who's really pissed off and really injured, let's just say he's going to try to cloak the warrior to give him some invisibility protection, okay, in this example. So let me look at my powers here and see how that works. So Sorcerer, he's a level 3 at Cloak, and let's see how close he has to be to activate his power. Let me just check my stats here. So Sorcerer, Cloak, level 3, so the range is M4. So yeah, he's not in range to do that. So that's not a good idea. So in this case, the sorcerer is just going to move forward this time. in his action. So he's just going to move forward based on his moving speed. Let's just keep it simple. And let's see. So that was the sorcerer. Now we got the priest's turn. Okay, he's done his job to heal this guy, and he's going to get in closer to the warrior to try to finish this guy off. So it's kind of a tag team at this point because they see he's very weak. So he's going to go right about here. That's his action. Okay, so now we have the dragon's turn, the Nightshade Dragon's turn. Okay, very injured again. The flesh behind, around his neck region is extremely damaged, and his vital areas are exposed now. So one good hit could definitely kill this guy in the neck. One hit to the neck could kill him. Okay, the fire is now extinguished, by the way. So, guess what? It's his turn now. So he's going to try to bite the warrior's head off. He's close enough now. He's just going to bite his head off. Okay, so let's see how we can do that. Let me pull up the stats for the Nightshade Dragon. And see how we do that. Okay. So bite. Let's see. Yeah, he's right in one range, so very up close and personal. How proficient is he? +1. So I only get 2 shots to make this happen. Okay. It's right on the line. I'll take it, but let me just see if I can get closer. Okay, yep. Nice and close. He's proficient +1. So either one barely succeeded. So in this case, the dragon is going to use his giant mouth, open it very wide, and just try to maul this guy's head off. Okay? So, in this case, the attack did succeed. So the warrior is going to try to just get out of the way. He's not going to try to block that. He's going to try to just evade that. So let's see what happens to our warrior friend here. Okay. The warrior is a defender, so you always spend the defender first. So let's see, I have 7 plus my evade modifier is it's 10. Okay, this may not be too good. And now for the Nightshade Dragon. Okay, again we're evading, so with evasion we got to consider the digits like I just did, which is 9. This is not going to look good for the warrior. 9 plus his hit modifier. So how good is he at hitting something? Okay. And let's see. The dragon's hit modifier is, let me see here, 3 plus advantage to his teeth. So you could say his mouth and his teeth have their own advantage because of their structure. Let's give them, based on the stats, a 7 advantage. That's pretty ridiculous. So right there, I just scored a 19. So guess what? The warrior was not able to evade that dragon's bite. So therefore, he just got his head bitten. Let's see how bad. Now, again, based on the school of thought you're in, that's a pretty common sense what just happened. He probably just got his head bitten off, okay? You could end it that way right there, or you could spend for damage, okay? Because again, it could change the outcome. Now in this case, let's say I do go with damage, okay? I scored a 0 plus 2, so that's tier 2 damage. So 2 times the bite does tier 3, so it's 6 hit points of damage is what this did. Now the bite damage does piercing and tearing, so it's gonna, his large teeth are gonna try to pierce through this guy's skull and then do some tearing. So I'm gonna treat this at this moment like piercing damage. Okay, so 6 hit points. Okay, we've seen this kind of thing before by now. Okay, the warrior human. So here is his head. So 6 hit points, right? He's not wearing a helmet, so completely obliterated his tissue. Okay, completely obliterated his skull, because it's nice, clean, piercing, it's even, and completely killed his brain. So a game master could interpret it like he just got his head bitten off is what just happened. So the warrior got his head bit off, literally, in one hit. So this guy's dead. Okay? So that just happened. Now that's over. So now we have a sorcerer and a priest that are left to fight this guy, who's almost dead too, by the way. So it'll be very interesting. So now, let's see. So the warrior, let me scratch this guy off, is dead. So now it's the sorcerer's turn. Okay? He's going to... he's not close enough for any other spell, so he's just going to try to finish this guy off with a fire stream. Okay? He's really pissed off. He just saw his friend get his head bit off. So that's what we're going to try to do here. Another fire stream attack. Okay, and from here and right there. So, yep, nice hit. Okay, in any of the shapes, I got it right in the circle, so that's definitely a hit. And let's finish this guy off. Again, he's going for the Nightshade Dragon's neck. And damage, okay, 0 plus 2 is 2, so 2 times 3 is 6. He had 5 hit points left in the exposed vitals on his neck, so literally the fire stream just shot nice across from here, this distance here, and completely consumed his exposed area with flames. Definitely enough to deplete the remaining hit points in his vital areas on his neck, and just completely fry the dragon dead from his exposed neck wound. So the Nightshade Dragon is dead at the cost of a warrior and some ether and so forth. So great, great outcome that we wanted. Now, as you can see, teamwork in Glyphs especially is a very important thing to surviving a combat, because now, guess what? Your healer's alive, so he could probably revive this guy if he has the power. Or maybe they have the potion or some forth. So this guy here, the sorcerer of all people, just saved the day is what just happened. So a lot of different things can happen. This is a very good illustration to show you what typical combat looks like with, you know, in a party environment like we're all used to doing. So thank you for joining me. Now I want to cover one more thing here in the combat chapter that deals with experience and rewards. So stay tuned. One final piece of information I want to touch on in chapter 13, the combat chapter here. We've just done some really awesome combat illustrations to give you an idea of the flow of combat. Now I just want to talk really quick on what happens after combat. So we're going to talk about combat rewards. So, but you're probably asking, you know, what's in it for me besides just being able to kill my enemies and look really cool doing it? Besides that, what does my character get out of the process, assuming the character survives? So on page 257, which is in the combat chapter, the very last couple pages of the chapter, it's going to touch on that. Now, it's there for you to read. It gives you some examples, so you can do that here at your leisure here, as you can see. But I'm just going to show you clinically here real quick. Okay, so experience in the glyph system, it's really neat because it's not a static leveling process, and we're going to talk about that in the development chapter, exactly how to level up. We're going to go into that in detail. So basically, you get rewarded for what you do, okay? So there is none of this, I just hack down monsters all day and I get experience points just for killing, okay? That works in a lot of games. That doesn't work in Glyphs. Now, you do get experience towards, you know, defeating opponents, but mostly it's you are rewarded for specific actions that you do, okay? So that's how we award experience in Glyphs, okay? It's more organic, and to be honest, it makes a lot more sense. So let's take a look here from a combat encounter. Let's say we just resolved a combat encounter and we're going to award our members experience. So in Glyphs, like I said, you're rewarded for what you do. So if you're able to successfully use a power, a skill, or it's mostly going to be powers, techniques, and attacks, and as far as combat goes. So I recommend having each player track what they do each loop and write it down. So let's say if you have a character that successfully strikes the dragon in the neck with a longsword, that counts as a successful use with that weapon. So just write down that, and that's 1 point. Okay. Each thing they do successfully contributes towards experience. So let's say they're able to use a power. In this case, the last example, the elf or the daemon use a fire stream successfully. That counts towards using that power successfully. So just write that down throughout the loop. Is what we're trying to show here. So that way you get credit for what you're doing. Now, at the end of the loop, or at the end of the combat, you're going to learn later in the entity chapter, which are monsters, that each creature will have a threat modifier. So it's basically like a level. It shows you how dangerous it is during the encounter, and that functions as an experience multiplier. So let's say, as an example, I'm fighting a creature with a 5 threat modifier, right? Okay, nice level threat. and I was able to strike that creature once in the neck and kill it. Let's just say clinically. Okay, you could go on longer in combat as we've seen, but that counts in this example as a usage of my weapon that hit my target. It doesn't have to kill it, but it has to hit it. It has to actually succeed. So in this case, the monster gets cleaved in the neck, it dies. Okay, in this example, so a weak monster, right? Nice clean hit. So 1 is multiplied by 5 because you killed a threat modifier 5 creature. So you become 5 experience towards the weapon that you're using. So in this case, the longsword. So you just earned 5 experience points with the longsword. Let's say I used a power and set this guy on fire and he died, right? So the same would apply. 5 experience points towards the power, because experience is multiplied based on a monster's threat modifier. If you're fighting an NPC or another player character, again, happens all the times in my games, pretty awesome, then you would reference the player character's combat level, which functions basically the same thing as a threat modifier. How dangerous are you in combat, and how well can you fend off a threat? Okay, so that's all we're looking at here. So pretty simple. At the end of the combat encounter, it's ideal for the game master to set aside a couple minutes to award people's experience. Sometimes I wait till the very end of the game. Again, that's entirely up to you how you manage your campaign. That's what I try to do, so that way people get instant gratification right after they just went through an awesome fight. So pretty straightforward here. Again, you're going to see an example of that in practice. Okay, 258, probably the second most important part, loot and treasure. So what, besides becoming stronger and better, what else am I getting out of this fight is what this addresses. So loot and treasure. So some experience points, okay? And what did this monster bring about with him? What kind of treasure can I find, or the equivalent of treasure, okay? The way we address that in Glyphs is looking at an entity's bit value. So how much is this entity worth dead is essentially what that number figures out, okay? Now we're going to learn more about that in detail in the entity chapter, okay? But I just want to show you what that translates to. So let's say you have a monster with a bit value of 6, okay? So let's see here, and again, and that's in the entity chapter. You're going to go over that in detail, but let's see. Let's look at a bit value of 6. So a bit value, again, is a monetary reward that they're worth after you defeat them in combat. So you can interpret it how you want. You know, if they're carrying actual gold with them, or you're next to their lair and you just happen to find it after they're dead, or, I mean, there's a number of ways a game master can play that off. That's entirely up to you, okay? Wolves, even wolves, obviously, are worth a certain amount monetary value because it's a game. That doesn't mean they're carrying actual gold with them. They didn't swallow gold. So, you know, that's up to you to be creative on how to figure out on how to distribute it and how the players find it. But they should be rewarded for, you know, killing the monster, okay, both with experience and with some monetary compensation, or maybe an item or relic. So here, let me see here. So let's say I have a creature with a bit value, like I said in the entities chapter, bit value 6 through 15, reward an expensive item, okay? So in this case, let's see. In this case, random example here, my bit value, the monster was 7, so expensive. So expensive, if we look in the currency chapter or on your architect screens, expensive, you can flip or spend the token 5 to 6 times and come up with 5 to 6 numbers, okay? And we're going to cross sum them. So I'm going to do that here. So 4, and I'm just going to spin here, 2, 0, 1, 3. I'm going to do it 5 times, okay? So 4, 2, 0, 1, 3. That's expensive. Okay, so that's 42,013 bits. So 42,013 bits. Okay, so that's how many bits you're awarded. Now again, you're going to learn about bits and money in the currency chapter. I'm just throwing this at you now clinically, for combat rewards. So let's say that monster awards you 42,013 bits worth of treasure. You want to do 2 things. You could say, you could think of a relic, you know, magic item that's worth something like that. You know, it's an expensive relic, or you could just simply convert it into gold or treasure. So in this case, I'm going to be using gold gold pieces, which are grams in my system. We're going to look at grams, so I'm going to divide that figure by 105. Again, it's all here for you to see, but in this example, I'm going to do that. So 42,013 divided by 5. So let me do my math here. Let me get my calculator out. And let's see, 42013 divided by 5. No, I'm sorry, by 105. 42103 divided by 105. Okay, so this currency, now that you've determined the bit value, you divided it by the right currency. In this case, we're looking at gram pieces of gold, so small gold coins. So you're looking at about 400 gold pieces is what you just awarded to the party. So 400 GP in grams. So tiny pieces of gold. So 400 GP was just awarded to the warrior or the party, and they have to split it up however they want to for killing that monster. That's how we award treasure and, like I said, experience here. So what you do specifically in combat is what you're awarded for. And as far as loot and treasure go, you know, how threatening was the monster that you just killed? What bit value specific are you looking at? That's going to determine the amount of treasure that's rewarded. So every experience is literally a different experience every single time. Thank you for joining me. So now let's move on to the next chapter. We're going to talk about ether. Okay, cheers.